Cue to get started. Welcome, everyone. This is the June meeting of the Pownell Planning Board. We're going to start with a public hearing. Can I just sort of get a show of hands? Who is here for the public hearing on the McCandless application for a 5-unit inn? Okay. All right, great. Thank you. So the meeting's been called to order. The first thing I'd like is Ms. McCandless, if you could give us a brief summary. The board has heard from you, but I think it would be beneficial for everybody who's here to give an opinion. Yes, please.
Like I did last time. Okay. The board did hear about the plan previously. I know many of you, you're my neighbors. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what our plans are. And also, before I do that, tell you a little bit about myself and give context to this, because as I said, when I started, I was considered the woman from New York when I did in fact grow up here. I have quite a few Maine accolades, but after college, or for college, I left for New York. I graduated from Columbia University with a degree in urban planning and literature. And I stayed in New York until about 90 days ago when I came back to raise my daughter here and hopefully create an enterprise, because in Maine you have to be enterprising. So the idea was, we knew when we found this place that we wanted to do something around tourism, but we wanted to give, if you want to go to the next slide, we wanted to honor the property and make sure whatever our plan was anchored in not disrupting the area that we are in. So the concept summary, and I'm going to read it only because I know people are calling in. So our concept summary is: preserving the rural beauty of Pownell, this boutique 5-room inn will aim to deliver a first-class lodging experience for the traveler seeking a quiet, authentic, but elevated coastal farm stay with access to the best of Maine, including Bradbury Mountain, the greater Portland area, and Maine's mid-coast. Built-in phases. We'll talk about what that means. Each guest accommodation will include a private bathroom, but exclude kitchens. Guests will enjoy nature and health-inspired amenities within the gardens and forest common areas, offering each a chance to connect with the native beauty of Maine. All proposed accommodations will be built within the existing structure of the property so as not to disturb the existing aesthetic and rural charm. An underlying commitment to sustainability and the natural world will be woven into each practice. For example, where possible, construction plans will utilize reclaimed and repurposed materials, while decor selections. Do you want to sit? Sorry. Go ahead. Okay. And repurposed material will be made by local makers and artists. I also, during the pandemic, earned a degree in sustainability and circularity practices. It is very important to us that we keep the existing structure in the way that it is. And my husband has been working very hard to clean the 200-year-old barn currently. And we've found that we have quite a bit of material to use so that we can stay in line with that. Will you go to this page, please? It's further down. Check. What's wrong?
There's some additions here.
So our current plans for everyone in here is to do only 5 accommodations. That's okay. That's okay. No problem. Okay. No, you're fine. Hi, Chuck. This is so nice. These are all my neighbors that are here. And it impacts them, so it's good that they're here. So we are planning to do 5 units. We are planning to do this in phases. Probably, given the timing, we'd start and open with 2. We'd learn from what that experience is on how we can improve, because I've spoken with some of my neighbors, we don't wish to create a significant amount of traffic. We want to handle and manage that, and we want to create as little disruption as possible. I answered some questions from neighbors. We are not anticipating hosting large groups. We're targeting and will market couples. We will price the accommodations a little bit more on the higher end, just to keep noise at a minimum. The plan here, probably the biggest change that's happening, is that we had to address for fire and rescue a pretty complex driveway scenario, which is adding a second entrance, but I have learned from my neighbors that that was the original. That actually existed previously. It had just been covered up, so. So that's the basis of the presentation. And I'm happy to field any questions. Yes.
Maybe a little bit of sort of what's going to happen next. So this is an application for a special exception. What we're doing tonight is holding a public hearing. So there's an opportunity for neighbors and residents of Pownell to give some input, make observations about the impact it might have on the neighborhood. With special exceptions, there are not like other areas in our ordinances. They're not a set list of criteria that the planning board has to consider. So it's a much more open-ended process. The term special exception, as you can imagine, is intended to be for special exceptions. So we don't grant these lightly. We do need to put in a lot of consideration about the impact to the neighborhood. With that having been said, like any sort of administrative process in town, it's not a residential sort of democratic vote. So it's not like if there are more opponents, then it's going to be denied, or there are more folks for it, that it will be granted. So after each of those who wish to speak has spoken, the board will deliberate, ask some clarifying questions, and then make a decision up or down. Unless there are further materials that are needed, based on our last meeting, we had determined that the application was complete, and so I don't anticipate that, but that's always a possibility. All of that having been said, I'd welcome anyone who would like to speak to come up, raise your hand, I'll call on you and come up to the microphone. We'll, just because we have a lot going on tonight, I'll ask folks to keep their comments to 5 minutes or less, okay? Mr. Hall.
Good evening. My name is Tom Hall. My wife and I and 2 children live right next door to the property in question. We've seen Nina and JR put in a whole lot of time, just a whole lot of effort into improving their property. I have to say, as an engineer, I love the presentation. The detail is great. It has obviously received a lot of work, a lot of thought. I think this would be a great addition to town. I'm not worried about traffic at just 5 units. It certainly isn't any worse than all the beans traffic that goes through it, blasting through at 7 in the morning. So I think it would be great. I hope that between the inn and Bradbury Mountain, that maybe we can get a coffee shop back in town to go along with all this. But that would be good for the whole town. So I hope you'll consider it carefully, but I hope you'll give your approval to this.
So. Any other comments?
My name's Lester Blake. I live in the neighborhood right across the street from her. I've grown up in the neighborhood. That's where I had spent my childhood. I know the farmhouse and the area very well. We met with the company here and had some questions that they answered. They went over everything. I'm in full support of this happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands, I think we'll move on to deliberation. Okay, so, I'll just sort of gear us, actually first, before that, any clarifying questions for the applicant?
Yes, for you. When I reviewed the minutes, it didn't say that we actually did the application complete. So that could be either representing the minutes or
Let's do that tonight. Yep.
Do you have any plans in the future to potentially do a coffee shop?
I just turned to one of my neighbors and said, I think we can make that happen. I mean, based on the criteria, we are at some point in a different phase permitted to have a restaurant and serve the public. At this time, we are focused on the small 5-room inn. If there is a need for that, I would be more than happy to serve coffee or whatever else, in a public space. We'd like to start this way and see it be successful and learn from how we're starting. Because in the short time we've been here, we think this is a beautiful place, but we also want to be deliberate about all of just the choices and promises that we are able to take on. So in the future, perhaps. Do you have any other questions?
I just, I think in general, it's always good that people talk to their neighbors before they come to the planning board. It's nice to see that. And so I think, I commend you on being good neighbor and building those relationships.
Well, thanks. I have a very kind group of neighbors that I've moved into. So, which both myself and my daughter and my husband appreciate very much. So.
Any other clarifying questions?
I just had one. Nina, in a perfect world, if we were to vote this complete today and this move forward, what would be and I'm looking through your app to see, what would be the timeline on those first 2 units? Just so that we all have a sense of this.
So since I've seen you last, I met with a structural engineer because it's required by the state, because I have lodging, to go through a structural assessment. That the initial assessment was that the structure is sound. We are focused on and have been clearing this out on this map. That's marked units 2 and units 3 would be our first 2, which are back facing. In a perfect world, because we are doing much of the work ourselves, we would like to have the first 2 units opened in the fall. Realistically, there will be many challenges. I mean, Maine is a place where there's like 4 plumbers. Everyone is retired. And that's not a joke. That's real. I've called many places. I don't know, I have a lot of will to get things done. So we'd love it to be October. It may be the spring, because I don't think that we would plan to open during a winter month.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
I just have a question more for the board going forward. If we approve the 5 units, if there's some thought of expansion of a coffee shop or a restaurant or an addition of more units, would that require the applicant to come back before the board?
Yeah, I think that would be a change of use that would be consideration. So I think I'd propose we go completeness vote, special, and then deliberation on the special exception. And then assuming the special exception is granted, go through the findings of fact and conclusions of law. Does that work for everybody? So I would move that the board find the application complete. All in favor? I would move that the board vote to grant, actually, sorry, deliberation first. Next item would be special exception. Welcome any comments from any board members on this issue.
I think this, development is completely in line with the comprehensive plan. We want small, and are specifically mentioned, there's something that would be, grew up with a rural character, so I think it's a good idea.
Brian?
Yeah, I would just say I would agree. I mean, it's inconspicuous. It's using existing structure. I think it fits well. It's not large. So
Very much.
see no
agree.
issue. Yeah.
I think it's nice that it's in an area where there's been a lot of development lately. And I think this is like the perfect type of development that doesn't impact the broader neighborhood too much. And so I'm fully in favor. Any other observations before we move?
Yeah, I was just looking at the actual special exceptions, and it seems like the applicant has actually very much addressed every single item here when we're talking about this kind of development, and that's very much appreciated.
All right. Anything else? I will move that the board grant a special exception for the establishment of a 5-unit inn at the location on the application. All in favor? Motion carries. All right. So we'll go through we have to do this at any decision. We have to go through the findings of fact and conclusions of law. So I'm just going to list out the findings of fact first. We can vote on those as a whole, and then we'll have to go through the conclusions of law individually. I see that there's a audience question or comment. Sure. So this is out of order. We'll just do it because, yeah, it's not a concern at all, but would be happy to, I think, go through the slides. I think the sort of chance for public comment has closed.
Okay, so this is the property, and if you go to the next slide. Okay, so this is a conceptual rendering, and this is actually not the design. Renderers now are unable to make anything look old. Like they can't help themselves. It will not look like this. I actually, those of you that know the barn, there's no other word for it. I'm obsessed with how charming it is. We do not want to change the exterior. We will be adding windows, but we will that meet egress standards because we are hosting guests, but they will not be modern. They will be farmhouse windows, assuming we can source them. You want to go to the next one? Again, this is a conceptual rendering. It is based on what we will be able to do from a structural standpoint. And we may not actually be doing 4 uniform rooms, but again, this is to help people visualize what's happening. Our hope is to, it's a 2-story barn where horses were housed previously. And other livestock. And we would like to utilize the 2nd floor as a sleeping loft, and then there'll be an open space. And then if you want to go to the 3rd one, so trying to do this quickly. This is again, just a rendering. It actually won't look this white and blah, but again, we're just trying to help people visualize what would happen in the barn. We're hoping to make it look more rustic, but this gives context to how we could achieve something that's 2 stories. That's it. You're welcome.
And this is Orion Breen, Planning Board member. At the last meeting we had that was recorded, we had a longer presentation, and that you should be able to look at that on YouTube for anybody at home. And anybody who's watching now, if you go to the previous one, you'll get to see a longer presentation.
All right, I'm going to go through the findings of fact and we'll vote collectively on those. So the owner of the property is Caroline McCandless. The property is located at 162 Merrill Road. It's the RA zoning district and contains about 5 acres of land. Applicants are Elizabeth and Caroline McCandless, who have demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a deed. Notice of the proceeding was not published notice of the proceedings was published in the local newspaper. That was on the forecaster. I don't have the precise date, but it was within the last couple of weeks. Oh, thank you. Okay. The applicant proposes to renovate her existing barn and home to construct a 5-unit inn within the existing footprint and make related changes identified on the site plan map dated 5/30/2024. The application was determined to be complete on June 26th. 2024. A public hearing was held on the same day. A site visit was waived by vote of, we have to do that next. I'll just say this and we can vote after the fact. A site visit was waived by vote of the board on June 26, 2024, and the application fee was paid on April 30th, 2024. I'd move that we adopt those findings of fact.
I did waive it, but
Oh, we did? Okay, great. All right, so that was May 15th.
May 15th.
Great. All right, subject to that one amendment, I'd move that we adopt those findings of fact. All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we have to go through one by one the conclusions of law. All right, the site plan sufficiently I move that the board adopt the conclusion of law. I will leave that out, the following. The site plan sufficiently follows the criteria for preserving the natural landscape and buffering next to adjacent properties where applicable. All in favor? Motion carries. The site plan meets the applicable criteria shielding adverse impacts onto adjacent property. All in favor? The site plan meets the applicable criteria for the design and layout of buildings and their relation to natural features, minimizes adverse impacts from soil erosion, sedimentation, promotes preservation of trees, protects water, soil, and maintains animal life, maintains safe and sanitary conditions during construction. All in favor? Motion carries. The site plan meets the applicable criteria for the site during construction. All in favor? Motion carries. Vehicular and pedestrian traffic conditions of the site plan meet neighborhood limits and meets the driveway and access criteria of section F. All in favor? Motion carries. The layout and design of vehicular and pedestrian circulation is safe and convenient, does not detract from buildings and neighboring properties, and meets the criteria as applicable for parking, pedestrian linkages, and loading areas. All in favor? Carries. The site plan meets the criteria as applicable for minimization of glare and other standards. All in favor? Motion carries. On-site utilities are adequate, safe, and meet as applicable the criteria of section J. All in favor? Motion carries. The remaining are not applicable. I'm sorry. Industrial and commercial environmental performance standards and vibration are not applicable. On noise, the site plan results in noise level that are within standards as outlined in the zoning ordinance. All in favor? Motion carries. And those conclusions applicable to heat, fumes, and fire and explosive hazards are not applicable. So I move that we approve the site plan application before us. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. 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 I'm happy to sign that. I'll also keep this here and have it scanned, and then you can come and pick it up, or we can send it by email to you. Yeah.
The full-size plan?
Someone doesn't have the signatures. He had asked me to revise it with signature block.
We can put our numbers and names.
That's fine. Okay. And I would just like to thank Tom and Pam and Lester and Susan and Bill. I saw them come in, and Chuck and Mary and Mark, who are all my neighbors who came tonight. So, and thank you. And thanks, Tom, for all your help. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to do this.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing how it shapes out.
Thank you for the courage to invest in our community.
Okay, thanks all for coming and showing your support and participating. Our next item of business is the final site plan review for the Royal River Conservation Trust. This is the trailhead parking lot on Elmwood Road. It's so Marcia circulated it. It's the same document that we've used in the past. But we haven't in the past gone through and voted on everyone, which my colleague was like, you guys are, like, you can't just give the notes. So we should make a habit. Yeah, for site plan subdivision. If you don't do that, they'll say, even if you issue
No, I just realized.
not a complete
Fine, yeah, good, okay.
item for the Board of Appeals.
Hold up, I think I emailed.
So even if you issue this, you're supposed to. Which is-
Need to go.
Yeah.
And that's the guy who said to me like, hey, you guys should be doing this every time.
Yeah, you can put the site plan up on the screen and that's over. I'm sorry, put the site plan up on the screen if you're able to. access it.
Hanai, welcome. Thank you for coming back. You're welcome to go through another summary. I'm just gonna ask if folks are here for this purpose. And then we may spare you the need to go through a whole summary. Is anyone here in the crowd today not familiar with the Elmwood Trailhead parking lot proposal by Royal River? And would you like, last month, we had the applicant provide a summary of the project. We asked them to make a couple of very small changes. We can go through another summary of that project if folks are interested and would like to hear about it. But if you're not here to comment on that or otherwise not sort of focused on it, that's the plan up there. Sure, yeah. So Hanai, my understanding was you guys changed the radii for the turn and expanded the culvert to 18 inches.
Yeah.
Everything looked good by me. Did any other board members have questions or observations?
I had one question, and it's not about the changes you made. I love your Elmwood trails, but one of the sketchiest parts is the bootleg parking on the other side of the road. Will this project also deter parking in that bootleg spot, or has that been talked about yet? Yeah.
To redirect the parking over there.
Can you drop some boulders so they don't park there? You're not allowed to do that.
I think that's town land, so we should talk to.
Can I drop some boulders? Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, we've met before and I'm.
Matt Welch.
I'm sorry.
County Conservation Commission Chair. So that Elmwood property, we just passed the easement on it with Royal River at the last town meeting, and Amanda was at our meeting last night and we went over this, and you know, the bootleg one you're talking about is there used to be a cable over that the town and we'll probably end up putting that back up with, you know, a lock or some sort of latch that, you know, some people know, like Dick Hogue, the animal control, you know, people, yeah, so it would be controlled more.
What about the actual pull off? You know how people pull off there to get?
I mean, you can only,
do it so
the
much.
side of the road is the side of the road, so but yeah, that is the plan.
It's the trickiest part of Elmwood there. Yeah, thank you.
I think once that's open, it
Might slow it down. Yep.
You introduce, not sure where you, or what you've done. Just your name.
Yeah, I'm Tanai Harris and I'm the stewardship manager at Royal River Conservation.
Any other questions for the applicant, or can we just move ahead to, we do have to go with the waive, that's site visit and public hearing. But I would be happy to reply to my question. All right, so before the board is the site plan review for the trailhead parking lot on Elmwood Road. I vote that we waive the site visit that is ordinarily required under site plan review. Because most of us are familiar with the property. It's not a very significant change. And there actually was, while a couple of board members were on the board, there was a site visit that was performed. So I felt like we all agreed last meeting that it wasn't necessary to do so. So I would move that we waive that requirement. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. And we also have to waive the public hearing requirement. I would just observe that there was effectively a public hearing for this tonight. People knew about it. It was noticed as of the last meeting, if anyone was following. But I move that we waive the public hearing requirement for this application. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. All right. And I apologize, folks, for the redundancy here. We're trying to get more organized with our notices of decision. And as I say that out loud, I can't find the notice of decision that I had.
Have some Jeopardy music queued up.
I swear I printed these out at work today. Okay, great. So the findings of fact will vote as one. The owner of the property is Royal River Conservation Trust. The property is located at tax map 4, lot 501. RA zoning district, contains about 3.2 acres. Applicant is RRCT, who has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by virtue of a warranty deed. Notice of the proceedings was not published in the local newspaper. The applicant proposes to build a trailhead parking lot constructed of gravel, allowing for 6 regular and 1 handicap space with incidental spacing outside of incidental parking outside of allotted spaces, not prohibited, as delineated on the site plan, Elmwood Road Trailhead Parking Lot, Plan Revision 3 dated 6/11/2024. The application was determined to be complete on June 26, 2024. We will make that determination. A public hearing was waived by the planning board on June 26, 2024. A site visit was waived by the vote of the planning board on June 26, 2024, and the application fee was paid. I move that we adopt those findings of fact. All in favor? Motion carries. I move that we determine that the application is complete. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we'll go through the conclusions of law one by one. I move that we determine that the site plan sufficiently follows the criteria for preserving the natural landscape and buffering next to adjacent properties where applicable. All in favor? Motion carries. I move that we conclude the site plan meets the applicable criteria, shielding adverse impacts onto adjacent properties. All in favor? Motion carries. I move we conclude the site plan meets the applicable criteria for the design and layout of buildings. We can skip that. Minimizes adverse impacts from soil erosion and sedimentation, promotes preservation of trees, protects water, soil, and animal life, maintains safe and sanitary site conditions during construction. All in favor? Motion carries. I move the board conclude the site plan meets the applicable criteria for the site during construction. All in favor? Motion carries. I move the board conclude vehicular and pedestrian traffic conditions of the site plan meet neighborhood limits and meets the driveway and access criteria of section F of the site plan review criteria. All in favor? Motion carries. I move the board conclude the layout and design of vehicular and pedestrian circulation is safe and convenient, does not detract from buildings and neighboring properties, and meets the criteria as applicable for parking, pedestrian linkages, and loading areas. All in favor? Motion carries. Is there going to be lighting at the property? No. Okay. Lighting is not applicable. I move the board concludes signage does not detract from building structures and surrounding properties, is not hazardous to vehicles or pedestrians, and meets the sign specifications of the zoning ordinance. All in favor? Motion carries. Are there going to be any utilities on site? Okay, that's not applicable. Industrial and commercial environmental performance standards are not applicable. On noise, I move the board conclude the site plan results in noise levels that are within the standards as outlined in the zoning ordinance. All in favor? Motion carries. Vibration is not applicable. Heat and fumes are not applicable, and fire and explosive hazards are not applicable. There are some conditions of approval that were proposed. I move that the board adopt as a condition of approval that on or before November 21st, 2024, the applicant shall obtain approval from the Maine Department of Transportation for installation of early alert signage on Elmwood Road in both directions. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lassard. I'm the Conservation Director at Royal River Conservation Trust. Tom and I have been discussing that we're not sure if the timing of November is feasible or practical for the installation of those signs. We do know that we need a street opening permit from DOT, but the advanced warning signs for parking ahead, we anticipate we can get a permit and our contractor can install it, but we think we can do that in 1 year. And so instead of that date, we would propose that that condition be 1 year from the date of today's approval. If that's okay with the board, I think we expect the construction will be able to be complete and installed far in advance of a year, but I didn't want to have to come back if there were some unforeseen, supply chain issues or whatnot. Thanks. No, I think in the packet that we had of the May meeting, and I think Ken and I handed them out at the last meeting, they were two signs in each approach that said trail or trailhead parking on left, on right, and a warning sign that there would be turning traffic. And DOT had recommended specific locations that they would permit those signs.
Okay, any concerns about 1 year term? Okay, I move that the board conclude as a condition or apply a condition of approval that within 1 year of the date of issuance of this decision, the applicant obtain approval from the Maine Department of Transportation for installation of early alert signage on Elmwood Road in both directions. All in favor? Carries. Okay. I move that the board grant the site plan application of the Royal River Conservation Trust before it tonight. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. I'll do the same thing with this. Actually, we'd like to sign the large plan, one copy.
I have a couple extras. You'll have to handwrite the condition of approval on, and you can do this after. Do you want me to handwrite them kind of on the side? Or I don't have to.
I can,
You just sign it whenever.
I can handwrite it and we'll keep it here. What, yeah, I think that makes sense. And I'll have the notice of decision, same thing. We'll scan it and send it out to you in the next couple days. If you don't hear from me, just bug us. Okay, thank you. All right. Next item of business, as this is being circulated, folks, you can go ahead and sign. The next item is the Bradbury Campground expansion. Tom, we haven't spoken about this. How would you like to handle this? Would you like to give your summary of sort of how this has come up to us first? You had offered in a note to do that.
The most important thing for the board to acknowledge, Mr. Hall is left. But there is no official documentation other than an email that Mr. Hall sent to me for your review, because the Board of Appeals had granted by a 4-0 vote in the affirmative. And my second question to Mr. Hall was, were there any conditions or stipulations? There are none. So the first order for the board to receive it and to review. I believe the applicant has a presentation to make. You also have on tonight's agenda, at the end of the agenda, a communique from one of our residents. And rather than save it for the end of the meeting, because it's applicable to Bradbury, maybe it can be woven in so that the applicant can respond to any of those questions. The last thing is that the applicant has really done some extraordinary efforts to bring forward much of what was asked for from the public, right down to trying to establish more walk-in sites. And that was brought up by one of our select people as well as several residents. So I know they've been working on it. Maybe Mike, you can bring us up to date as to how much you were able to expand walk-in sites. The original park for campground had 5 walk-in. I believe we're up to 7+. And you can help the board know what the plus might mean.
Excuse me, I just have a quick question for Tom.
Yes.
What exactly did the appeals, Board of Appeals approve of? What was the vote on specifically?
When they
What
took
was
the
the
vote,
question
uh,
before them?
well, to expand a non-conforming use.
Okay.
And that's why it ended up going initially, it ended up going to a miscellaneous appeal. Went to the appeals board twice. The first time as administrative appeal, and then more appropriately, the second time for miscellaneous appeal, which was for 4-0. So as a non-conforming use.
Yes, sir.
Just a point of clarification and correction. Currently, there's 3 walk-in sites at the park. We used to have an arrangement with the company Kentra. They have gone bankrupt, so we no longer have those sites. So we have currently 3 walk-in sites.
I'm going to make a quick point, and I feel silly doing this, but part of what we do is build a record if things are opposed in court, and I just want to make my wife serves on the Board of Appeals. She was part of the discussions in this, but did not actually vote. There could be an argument that I am, as a result, biased. I regularly disagree with my wife. I don't think that there is any issue, but this is yes, she would very much agree with it, oddly. So I don't think there is an issue, but I raised that for the board, and anyone who would like to vote that I am need to recuse is welcome to do so.
Actually in the same boat,
Okay.
because my husband is on the board of appeals. And we never agreed.
Yeah. From the applicant, is there any objection to our serving in the role of secretary? And I'll be chair tonight, but not in the future. All right, thank you. All right, I'd welcome a sort of a summary of the project. Sorry, I didn't. Yep.
I am gonna also just hand out an email we received from DOT that may be helpful as we discussed tonight. So this was sent to Tom, but not in the original. But my name is Adrienne Fine. I'm a civil engineer here at Consultants, working on this project. We can all introduce ourselves and then what we're proposing.
So I guess I'll just continue on the introductions to keep things moving. My name is Gary Best. I am the regional manager of Maine State Park and Historic Sites Southern Region. The state's divided into 2 regions, north and south, so I focus my attention in the southern half.
I'm Chris Silsby. I'm the person on the ground here. I'm the manager of Bradbury. I've been there for 7 years, live right here in this community. So.
Mike Rogers from Lark Studio in Bar Harbor, Maine, landscape architects. And Virgie, science project.
So I think we'll start off tonight just kind of giving you a summary of the existing campground and what's kind of deteriorating and why this project is being proposed, and then give you a brief summary of, all the items that are proposed. And then you can, go through any questions you might have. So do you want to talk a little bit about existing ground?
So, of course, Bradbury is one of the original 5 state parks that the state has. So we're quite proud of that. Campground in 1940. So we have a small campground that came a little later on, but we have 36 campsites, all pretty primitive. We have 3 walk-in sites. All the rest you can drive a vehicle on. Some are small, some are medium, large, or extra large. We have no hookups. We have no indoor plumbing facilities. We do have a shower building, but it's just a shower building. We have outhouses throughout the campground. So it's pretty old. The road is a poor shape, a lot of rip tar that is coming up, but it's just a tired campground. We like to spruce it up and make some new amenities to keep with that tradition of what people are kind of looking for campground nowadays.
So, the area, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but the area of the existing campground is outlined in red, kind of right in the middle. It's a pretty zoomed out context map. Over on the right-hand side here where you see fields and the road intersection, that's where we are today at Town Hall. The green outline is the proposed campground area, which is overlaid on the existing campground. The existing campground takes up 10.4 acres, and it's located on lots 9 and 7 of tax map 5, partially in the rural A district and partially in the village district. And the proposed area outlined in green includes the proposed campsites for drive-to and walk. We did extensive mapping of the property for all of the wetlands, vernal pools, streams, any environmental resources like that before we started designing the layout of the proposed campground. We also looked at areas of steep slopes and came up with where we're proposing the campsites. Really fit them into the land where the slopes were desirable, where we weren't going to impact any wetlands or encroach upon any setbacks to vernal pools or wetlands or streams. And again, we're using some of the existing area where there are gravel loop roads today, but we'll be upgrading all the roads, and all of the actual campsites will be, some are in the same area as they are today, and then some are further from Route 9. So that's going to allow for a larger forested buffer to the. Could you go to the? So this is the proposed map. The existing entrance from Route 9 will continue to be used. That will be improved to meet DOT standards, widened to allow for better turning movement into the site. The roads throughout the first portion of the campground will be paved to help reduce erosion and deterioration over time. We have about 400 feet of queuing distance between Route 9 and the new gatehouse building, which is the first thing you see when you come in. It's that first building off the main road, kind of off to the right a little bit. There is no gatehouse there today. The check-in process is very much people pull in, stop at a bulletin board right off of Route 9 and try and kind of figure out their own check-in, which can result in traffic backing up onto Route 9 and confusion. This will be a much streamlined process where vehicles will have lots of queuing space, lots of parking space, both for parallel parking for RVs and for pull-in car parking, as well as a drive-up window at that building. There will be signage that directs people where to go. And then after you check in, you would continue along. That next building is the bathhouse. That's going to have 10 individual bathrooms with a shower, a toilet, and running water sink. There will also be some kitchen sinks on one end of this, kind of outside, and all the loop roads extending to the campsites will be gravel, and they will be one way. So we really looked at traffic movement throughout the site, what made the most sense for how people would access their individual campsite without having too much two-way traffic. And all of the roads were designed to meet National Park standards, as well as turning movements needed for like a fire truck type. And then coming back down towards the Route 9, we have a new dump station for RVs and a new water fill-up station for RVs. And then closest to Route 9, we have a maintenance area. There is currently a kind of open air maintenance building in that area adding, another pole barn, open air style building, as well as an enclosed, weatherproof building, and formalizing that maintenance yard. That will be, close to Route 9, but meets all setbacks from Route 9 for any proposed buildings. Keeps it all away from where the campsites are, but allows for more of a maintenance presence on this side of Route 9. The day use is all on the other side.
What are the red letters on the various sites?
Yep, we'll get into that in a minute. So then out in the back, we have pull-off parking, and that's to access the hike-in sites, which are up in the left hand. It is pretty hard to see on this map, and I apologize, but there are some red letters that are designations for the size of the campsite, which is something that is designated by the Bureau of Parks and Land for all of their sites.
Yeah, so we have, all of our sites, there's a size, depending on what you have for equipment. Small is for, pop-ups or tents, mediums are up to 20 feet, large is up to 25 feet, and so on and so on. The largest sites we have are U sites, those are, 40 RVs. Even though this looks like all the sites are big, they are not. We wanted to keep Bradbury kind of that state park image, so we've only allowed certain sites that would accommodate the larger 40-foot RVs. Everything else will be.
What is the X?
The S stands for an extra large. That's what they-
What is the makeup of how many are 40 versus the different sizes?
So we have got 43 drive-through sites total.
Yeah,
In the proposed condition, we've got 6 small, 9 medium, 14 large, 8 extra large, and 9 ultra large, but actually 2 of those 9s, it's actually only 7. Because 2 of them are host sites. Which means that they are for all.
A lot of our campgrounds, we do a campground host, agreement with volunteers. The volunteers that will come in, they have to work 20 hours a week. They help with the maintenance of facilities, begin with the camp, they usually stay with us for a season. Sometimes they all come back here. So, work sites.
So those are like seasonal workers who do that.
But they're volunteers, so.
Right, but I mean, they're, right. Are there, how many house sites are there? Not clear.
We have 3.
3 host sites.
Yeah.
So what is the maximum number of RVs that will be allowed?
We're only allowing, if you take away the 3 that are the host site, there'll be 7 that are for the alternate. And they're in that middle row, they're all on the same row, we wanted to keep them together.
Can you like describe the vehicle that would be like in a large spot?
Your big motor homes, they're kind of they're almost the same size as a bus.
Like a big man.
So when you say RV, you need a.
Recreation.
Buildings and all those.
Or a trailer, I mean, and one other point of clarification, we've got all of these administratively designated sizes, small, medium, large, ultra. These are all tent sites. So that's the maximum size. So like, I sleep on the ground in a tent. And when I can get a new site, I'll grab it. Because I've got all kinds of extra elbow room. So I don't want you to think that, the U sites are just for the 40-foot campers and the extra large are just for the 35-foot campers. These are all tent sites. But some can accommodate larger equipment, the tent trailers and the recreational vehicles. But that's the maximum size. Anything smaller can fit on that, including.
So somebody could come with their Subaru wagon and take them.
Any one of those sites.
Spread out.
Anyone, exactly.
what are the different sizes of again, like what's the size of the small, medium, large, extra large?
Those are 5 foot increments. Yeah.
Okay,
Tops out at 40 and then it's 35, 30, 25, and so on.
okay,
Yeah, the, smalls are up to a 20 foot,
okay.
up upward 10. Mediums are up to a 25 foot camper. Larges are up to a 30 foot camper. Extra larges is 35 foot camper. And then the Ts are the walking sites.
I'm assuming we're like midway through the presentation, is that right? Okay, all right, we'll ask some more, sort of, yeah,
Keep it open. Go though, so.
okay. Let's go through the presentation, then we'll ask some more questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we talked about all the different sites and the buildings that are out there. The RV dump station, as I mentioned, that will have, the ability to, any RV who's out here can come and use that on their ramp. Today, there is no RV dump station at the site, and so that's.
Yeah. We hear that a lot, that we don't have a dump station now, so people have to haul. Either some people go down and pay the KOA price to dump their waste there, or they gotta haul somewhere else. All of our sites we do, except for the walk-in sites, are gonna have water, and electric, and that's it. We won't have full sewer.
The whole site.
So the whole site.
Yeah, the rest will just.
The dump station is for sewer waste.
Yes, yes. And, so between the dump station, the gatehouse, the bathhouse, we have septic systems fully designed throughout this site, meeting all state regulations and being submitted to the state for review as well. And then we also have a new well going in, actually the new well has gone in. It's near campsite number 21. That is sized to accommodate all the water needs on the site, so that will provide for the bathhouse, the gatehouse, and the hookups throughout the property and the maintenance building. And let's see, the electric, the biggest draw for having that is produced through the generators out there. Currently, campers, generators, it makes for a noisy, polluted site. Having electric hookups at all the sites. And then we also designed this property I mentioned earlier to avoid wetlands and avoid areas of steep slopes, streams, setbacks from environmental areas. We also had to meet state requirements for site location of development permit with DEP, which is the biggest permit that they do, and it includes stormwater management. They review groundwater, they review erosion control. That has been submitted. Our stormwater, we are managing with ditches and level lip spreaders and buffers. We were able to direct stormwater to areas. This is a huge forested area, and there are areas around the perimeter where we're developing that will not be developed. And we are turning these into buffers where we're directing stormwater, and then they will be deed restricted and have to be remaining as a forested buffer in order to meet.
Do we have a copy of that application?
You should have a copy of the application, actually. Yeah.
And then there's a copy to the.
Yeah. We'll send them along tomorrow. They're quite large.
We know.
And then, like I mentioned, we're going through other state agencies for permitting for, the well, the septic, stormwater, and then we've also been speaking with ADOT, for the entrance. We're expanding the entrance, in place, but just to allow for better turning maneuvers and for better queuing. And so they will review that.
The email you sent had something about potentially putting up things that would indicate like how fast people are growing. Are you thinking of doing like electronic signs that just alert drivers of how fast they're going, or?
Yeah, so it's something we've started thinking about, after, we've been to quite a few meetings already with the town and with members of the public in the town, and we've heard that speed is a concern. And so we, after the last meeting, really started talking to DOT, and I can let Gary talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, so again, this has been a really good process, and we have been putting, proposals up, listening to folks. We've tweaked this a lot of different ways and times, and we continue to do that. And the speed out on Route 9 has been brought up numerous times. And there's only so much we as state parks can do. That's not our road, so we can't just lower the speed limit, but there's a few things we can do. We can improve the entrance so that people can get in with any size equipment, vehicle easier. We can move the gatehouse, the registration process farther in, so they're not just right on the edge of the road, blocking the next camper that might want to come in. We have the flexible delineators that are out, which, calms traffic to some degree. The next thing that we want to do, plan on doing, and again, it's a lot of, because of this public process, is get the speed radar feedback signs. So we're working with DOT now and looking at the various models. So we'd be putting one sort of where the ball field is, coming down towards the town in that direction. So this is one of those signs, we've all seen them. You're going 50 and you're supposed to be going 45, so it's blinking, you're going 50, 50, 50 at 45. And it comes and then it goes to solid and I guess people will hopefully to reduce to that appropriate speed. We'd also be putting one down towards where we are now, going up to the campground, same sort of thing, so that it would be alerting all traffic if they are exceeding the 45-mile-per-hour speed limit.
And Gary's summary is essentially the email I just handed you was what came in from DOT after that phone conversation. That, these are the things we can do, and then that was kind of the add-on. Look into getting this.
So after that email came in, we're continuing to work with them. We actually are kind of shopping them right now. There's more versions of those things that I certainly thought there were. But we, that's something we want to do. And again, I guess I would kind of thank this process for helping us to move in that direction, but that's what those signs are that we're referencing.
Would it be possible to put an exit ramp, for example, if the big motorhomes coming out, taking northbound or taking a right out of the campground? Somebody's coming up that hill, it's kind of blind, and they're going 50, on the 60, not that hill, and suddenly there's a 7-mile-an-hour motorhome.
So no, it's exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about adjusting the entrance and exit to the campground.
Right, so as I'm leaving the campground, so like taking right out of the campground, you got exit right up for a certain distance.
Well, they're still gonna have to stop when they get to Route 9, to look both ways. So even if there was a sort of an on-ramp, it's not like, it wouldn't be like a yield sign, you know what I mean? So they could get up to speed till they got to Route 9, then they should stop again to make sure that there isn't oncoming traffic. So, I'm not
We can't make
sure.
improvements, like, we can't just change Route 9 because it is a DOT road and that they have to approve those items, and design them. So that's why we're
So that is a
taking,
safety concern, right? A big camper will be going 7 miles an hour. And I'm coming back over.
yeah. We've designed the entrance to meet all site distance requirements for safety for DOT standards and town standards. So, the turning radius and the distance that you can see from that entrance point in either direction, also the distance vehicles should be able to see you from when you're turning in and out. And that's all based on the speed limit that's out there today, which, maybe is less than what people are actually going, but we're trying to, with these feedback signs, get people to actually go that speed limit.
Do people bring 40-foot campers in currently? Or
We do have 3 sites now that
Yeah.
we do get them occasionally.
Yeah.
But we do, yeah, no matter what size.
So it's not like no one has ever navigated that before. They will have, probably have more of them, but they have, yeah.
But we've always worked well with, Maine DOT. We, road was resurfaced 4 years ago. We worked with them, we did a speed study. We worked with them, they widened the road to allow the linear calming island was put in. That was their recommendation. So we, anytime that we do any type of improvement, Maine DOT is brought in, that they help us out with what we need to do to make stuff as safe as possible.
The yellow warning sticks that they had in the middle. Yeah, those were really.
Right, and that does slow traffic down. So those are up once again, that's something that we do every year.
This is just a photo of what it looks like today with those, delineators of which are seasonal, but, that plus the blinking signs, you know, what the extent of what we can do at this time on Route 9. But, you know, State Park's definitely in favor of.
We asked DOT what we could do.
Yeah.
You know, and first of all, they said, you can't even request a speed study. You don't have the authority to do that. That has to come from the town or law enforcement. And so we're neither of those. So we said, okay, you know, we really, you know, so what can we do? And the 3 things they came up with were moving the entrance station farther in, get people off, actually it was 4. Get people off the road, improve the entrance so that there's a better turning radius, maintain the flexible delineators, that calming island. And then, the last thing, would be those speed, feedback radar signs. So, you know, everything that they have told us we can do, we've either done or we're actively pursuing.
I'm curious, I don't want to go on and on about the speed, but I am curious, because this has come up in previous meetings, not about Bradbury, but about Route 9 generally.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that that we didn't have any ability to ask for a speed study.
So, so I specifically, and in that email, you'll see, I specifically asked, and they said there's 2 entities.
Okay,
Municipalities or law enforcement. They also, and this was, I talked to them a lot more than an email. You know, we kind of said, be careful what you wish for. If you do, there have been times where they've done a speed study and the speed actually was increased. I'm not saying that would happen here, but it said that has happened in the past. What are the other things? I mean, I think, you know, I wish people would go 45. You know, I mean, just before this meeting, you know, I got here a little early, and so I drove down Route 9 and came back and went into the campground, and I was being the good law-abiding driver going 45, and, you know, and there was someone that was kind of right on my tail. You know, and I know the town doesn't have any, you know, municipal police, but almost like an enforcement thing, you know, and I think that the speed signs are gonna help a lot, but boy, if there was a way to get a cop sitting out there for a little bit, I bet you the word would get around town and elsewhere pretty swiftly.
That's what I'm talking. Yeah. My question is those, crosswalk linkers, when somebody's crossing, is that a DOT?
That's what we wanted to do originally. Actually, it was, we were working closer with Royal River Conservation Trust for the year, like it was 4 years ago that Chris referenced. And because that is that big trail crossing. Right? So what we really wanted to do was have, you know, we push the button and there's the flashing pedestrian crossing. And that's what initiated in concert with the town of Pownell at the time, that speed study. And they denied the request for those pedestrian, the crosswalk. Said, you know, the traffic's going too fast for that, but what you can do is do that calming island with those big yellow flexible delineators that you can see there.
I think we're at.
These?
No, I want to request for link, thinking.
Oh, that was before. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Could be. We'd love to see it. You know, we would love to see a improved pedestrian crossing there at Route 9, and that's what we're really striving to do. And I know the town's wanting the same thing, so.
What about just signs saying, this is a state park area before you ever get to that crossing? You know, or you're saying that's the state, they're the only ones who really set the speed limit, say, this is definitely crossing.
Because even though the road cuts the park in half, that's not our property, we don't have the jurisdiction of it. It's that linear track of Route 9 is DOT's, and they set speed limits and maintain it, and they're the group we need to continue to work with. I think when we get those speed signs up, I think you'll notice a difference. I know it always makes me think when I'm coming up to one, when I see it blinking, I'm like, ooh, we're a little bit too fast, I guess.
Is there a policy, or are you considering a policy about like limit on how many nights, continuous nights you
Yes.
can stay?
14 nights
Okay.
during the season, so you can only stay 14 nights, and then, and the reason we have that, I mean, we want this to be available for as many people as possible. So we don't want someone to just come in and move in, and monopolize that site for more than a couple of weeks. And even the 14 days at really any of the parks is pretty rare during the summer, I wish I could get 14 days vacation time in the summertime, but I can't. But that's the limit, as long as they can stay, then they have to leave.
With the idea of you have more people coming into town, which in a lot of ways a good thing, do parks interact with kind of local law enforcement that as you grow, that like you are engaging more, saying we might expect more calls to the park to deal with a dispute or?
Yeah, we do that a lot already. We work with Cumberland Sheriff's Department all the time, anytime. I get their cell number directed back to call the sheriff. Same way with the Pownell Fire Rescue. I know them well, work well mostly with them, especially with the events that we have and the rescue for first aid stuff that we have. So it's a good round operation.
We have a lot of trainings we put on for our staff, and several years ago, we started what we call Ranger Academy, and a bunch of different training elements. I won't get into all of them tonight, but one of them is compliance and enforcement, which is a big part of that is learning how to partner with the other agencies. And they come in, they get to meet us, we get to meet them, IFNW, Sheriff's Department, municipal, state police, and just, establish that relationship. Chris has done a fantastic job of doing that. And then once they get to know the park managers and the park staff and they call, they know who it is, they're like, okay, this is, like, I trust this person, we need to go over and help them. Chris has really done a great job here of that, yeah.
One of our professors or one of our guest speakers was Nicole, who came in and actually talked to the entire Ranger Academy of the state.
Yeah.
He gave them what they felt hired.
Right, partnering with the MS, so yeah.
Your question about enforcement reminded me of another issue of enforcement. Combined with education, if there's gonna be more people coming in with a car, how can you, there would be a huge piece of people bringing firewood from out of state, and, we're all terrified about invasive species around here. Is there a plan to combine education and enforcement on that?
Absolutely, and that's what's huge about this project is this campground is gonna have a gate system, something that we don't have now. So anybody off the street can pull in, self-register, they can have whatever they want there. We may not even know. Now, with this new plan, there's a nice gate system. We got staff that's gonna man it. They'll be doing an actual check-in where these are CRAs or customer representatives, we call them. They'll be checking these people in. They'll be asking these questions, about, okay, we sell it. We'll be going through all of this.
So what if somebody says, yeah, if I were, use it, what happens? Are you allowed to do that? So you collect it?
Yeah, they are not allowed to.
Very good, very good. So
Yeah.
you like.
We collect it in the forest, we give the forest rangers a call, and they'll come and look at it. They pay the way.
Perfect, yeah. So So they're advised when they come in, if you brought firewood, you wasted your money because you're not allowed to do that. You're gonna burn up.
And we have good internal signs also. So yeah, it's one of the things that we mostly.
One of the things about this project, and I'm not sure how many state park campgrounds that you folks have had the pleasure of going to. But Bradbury is behind. You know, we are vastly behind the other state park campgrounds, other campgrounds, and Bradbury deserves better. You know, and this is a wonderful spot. And that's really what this is bringing it into, you know, the 21st century. And part of that is you know, camper trailers and RVs. And like I said, I mean, I still camp in a tent, which I enjoy, but these are also, I'm welcome here to come and camp in those as well. And when you looked at the map, it might look congested. This is not a congested campground at all. Actually, you know, Mike, the landscape architect, you know, has done a fabulous job of listening to us and saying, you know, Bradbury, we want to have people have a little bit of elbow room here, not be right on top of each other. And this is a special design. This is different than certainly private campgrounds and really many of our state park campgrounds, where there's a lot more buffer between the sites, privacy, and kind of that feeling that you want, that many people want when they go camping, to be out in the woods.
I have a question about that. Does this move any closer to the trail system on that side of the road? It's like the United Woods.
The new campground, the only trail that will take over will be the Lynx Trail, the main snowmobile trail. We moved it away, nothing else is harmed. And then this Lanzo Trail will be part of it as well, so we have a plan to make a new trail to connect up. So even though this will be compromised, we will be making a route that will go up and around. So you will, it doesn't really affect the trails all that much for just this little section.
It seemed to me it'd be important to make that, you show it as a single track link where you've eliminated a multi-use link.
Just right here.
Yes, I think it's important that should be a multi-use, so you have that route as well as you have a complete
Sure.
multi-use.
Yeah, valid comment, thank you.
Yeah, can I just ask a clarifying question? And I am someone who is not psyched to see the link go because it's one of my favorite pieces to teach a kid how to mountain bike. But Chris, can you give us a sense? There's a lot of rumors about, oh, we need more walk-ins, we need more tent sites. Can you give us a sense of the occupancy that you see now? Like, what are people bringing? What's your occupancy during the summer? And just give us a sense of that first, because are people walking into the walk-ins? Yeah,
Our walk-ins, so we have 3 walk-ins.
yeah,
One of them is non-reservable, so it's reservable. The 2 other sites are reservable, and those are the 2 sites that are always booked pretty much constantly right off. The other one is constantly used. If that one's open, somebody will grab that and we'll use it.
and so what other types of occupants, like, what are you seeing people come in with? And are you, in the summer, are you at 100%? Are you at 90% occupancy for like 8 weeks? Okay,
Yeah, probably 6 to 8 sites that come in this grad. But like last year, we had 10,372 camper nights. The
Okay.
lowest it was back in 2020, and it was 6,000. So
well, yeah.
That's 65% increase since 2020.
Right. And I am someone who goes to a lot of other state campgrounds, and I will say Chris and his team have managed to keep something, this is like an antique, and this needs an update. Absolutely. And it is, if you've ever actually been in there, it's a little gross. With the toilet situation. But I think, but Chris and his team are keeping something going that is literally falling down around them and have done an incredible job.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
at the same point, you know, we don't want to change that state park feeling.
Mhm.
It's gonna be, this is still gonna be one of the smallest campgrounds the state has.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
By far. So it's gonna be small. It's gonna have, continue with our state park image with wooden sides. Everything's gonna have that natural wood color, all of our buildings. We will keep that in all of the design phases. It's gonna be a state park. It's not gonna be like the KOA, there's not gonna be a swimming pool, there's not gonna be, you know, tennis courts or rec rooms and game rooms.
Right.
It's a traditional state park.
There will be 4 new golf courses in addition to the 10.
And there was a significant water problem last year that was actually very significant for a large part of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That-
I didn't mention it earlier, but I did say we drilled well.
Yeah.
It's located right here, close to the bathhouse, at least 300 feet from any septic, and we got really good.
Great.
We have 40 to 50 gallons per minute back with, 224 feet deep, so not even as deep as a lot of the wells. That's like really high. And there's some more submissions we need to study and submit to the state for that's fully approved to be operational. But, that was a great result, and that was, I believe, last week that we finally got that in the location we wanted it for, proximity to things. And, the well driller, you know, did a great job and everything worked out great. So, we're really excited about that.
Was there any kind of water capacity study? Because I believe the town is in the midst of doing one for the town center. As we speak, I believe the town is engaged in that, right, Tom?
Yeah.
So
That's-
then, you know, the town might be planning on possibly the municipal building here. Is like, is there enough water for all this?
Yes, the well scientists who helped us to site this well and size what we needed did a study, which was also part of the DEP submission, showing, all the bedrock and the water sources in the ground in this area, how much water on the low end and the high end of that would provide, and, we're a fraction of that amount. It's typically available in a and there's no information in the state database that shows that we should expect it differently. And our results here found, you know, really good results, and I would expect that, you know, similar sort of area and, ground formation, you would have similar results. One thing that, you know, obviously you could drill well and then move it and get good results and go 10 feet over and get terrible results based on what fractures are in the rock underground. It's impossible to know. And we were just fortunate here that the first drill was one, but we were anticipating potentially needing to, you know, slide it around and do multiple. One other thing I did want to note, just in response to some of the comments of the density, we did size this, so we have substantial forested buffers between these sites. So you'll see the driveways, but then where the numbers also are is kind of a cleared area. It's about a 25-foot radius. That's where we would have picnic tables, fire rings, areas for tents. And the distance between that and the next drive was sized to be about 45 to 50 feet as a minimum. And it's even more, you know, it's closer to 80+ feet between the actual driveways. And we're planning to keep, you know, as many trees as possible.
Well, so I have a question that you're putting the park is antiquated and you're upgrading this. Are you also going to upgrade for the day use people, get rid of the toilets? I mean, it seems only fair But I will say that I think, I totally agree with the upgrade is a really careful job. I was here and saw the first plan. I still am concerned about the question of scale, as I think Bradbury is the one green spot in this, if you look at the increasingly urbanized Portland, Lewiston area that's all coming together. And that its primary use would really shows COVID as a day use area. And I think it's important to preserve that. I'm a little concerned with the volume and number of campers coming in. I'm also concerned because these RVs have their own AC and heating systems, and it's going to extend the season, which means even more impact on the trails and the land. So those are concerns of mine. I was on the Conservation Commission and head of Pownell Land Trust, in which we work on land for many futures and added 600 acres in easements and open space to the park. So open space is such a key component in both the health of the trees too, as everything gets urbanized, you know, it's CO2 cleansers. So I've rolled a couple of things into one.
No, I really appreciate those comments. I actually have a question that's somewhat related, and I think it's out of order. It's not really relevant to the application, but maybe. The parcel of property that's sort of closer to Durham, on the Durham side of this, that just went up for sale. I think there's actually a slight, small piece, and then there's like a 50 acre or something parcel of property. Wow. Yeah, so tell me about that. I sort of think of that as a really logical expansion space, and it sounds like there's some money for Bradbury out there. I'm just kind of curious, and Royal River is here. Like, is there any, well, for Bradbury in general, I think.
We are well aware that that parcel is open. We do have some very interested partners, Royal River being one of them, that brought that to our attention. For us to just go out and buy something, the state does not do that. Everything has to go through the main future.
Well, I mean, not entirely. That's certainly a funding source that we use, Land for Maine's Future. The Knight Woods property was purchased with those fundings, so that is one of the sources. But it doesn't have to be the only one. And certainly if someone here today said, hey, we've got our checkbook and we'll take care of that for you and donate it to the park, we'd gladly do that and let Land for Maine's Future spend their money elsewhere. As far as, yes, there's some money for Maine State Parks right now. This is coming from the American Recovery Plan Act, in some ways as a result of COVID and the increased pressure, which is a good thing, on recreational areas. It is exclusively for infrastructure improvements. We can't use it for land acquisition. So this particular pot of money that we want to use here has a lot of strings attached, and unfortunately wouldn't be able to help with that purchase of that parcel. But like Chris said, we have walked that, and it is on our radar. It is a challenge for us to get that money, and it often happens when we have partners like local land trusts or Land for Maine's Future or Forest Legacy or donors. But we hear you. Thank you for bringing it up. We are aware of it. It's not like it's a slam dunk that we're going to get it at all. It's actually probably a long shot, but we'd love it.
Well, I mean, keep the town posted on that, because I think to the extent that the town can partner with you on it, I would be, supportive of that. We don't have any ability as a planning board to do anything like that, but I can tell you that a lot of folks in town, I think, would probably be supportive of that. So.
Where on the map is it?
Just past
That's where?
that yellow line on the map.
I don't know.
But is there a parcel between the two parcels? Like, in other words, is Bradbury does it boundary? It abuts it. Wow.
You know where the Minot Road goes up? And I can't do it. Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay. Adrian, are you done with your presentation? Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Sorry, that was a very full, and I don't mean to.
No, we've gone through everything, and then, you know, I think this is gonna really good, add a lot more, and we're happy to answer more questions or.
Okay.
I actually got a few,
Oh, yeah.
addressed a few things I've been taking notes, sorry. When we were here last, I spoke with you after, and you remember what your major comment was? It was, don't go past the wall, so we pulled everything, we were over this wall here before we pulled back, and that keeps the trail and the walls intact on the, well, I guess this is like the southwest side and the southeast side. So that was two achievements since that, which was, I think, maybe one of the biggest comments of that trail system disruption where, Chris is. So that whole trail system stays intact, other than this short connector, so, you know, it's a slight diversion, and I feel like if you're a mountain biking back there, I think it adds, 0.1 miles to your whole trip to get to the same spot, so that's, I feel like pretty good. Or cross country. That's right. Multi-use, thank you. And we can absolutely make that double track, that's, changing on paper is easy, right? Change it. In regard to the sizing and the spacing, I want to talk a little bit about the why and how of that. So those enlargements that were up a second ago and kind of near the end, those come from the National Park Standards book. I sent it to Tom. You got it? Yes. Great book, right? So those are the geometries and the spacings suggested by the national park. We actually made the spacings bigger. And in some cases, we made driveways a little wider because I know that sometimes people backing up trailers. So maybe just touch wider. But we're spaced out again from the open space to the next driveway is 45 feet at the smallest, but there's a little bit of range there.
And that's edge to edge, right? That's not even the center.
Yeah, that's edge to edge. So, and those open spaces, I mean, on these plans, we're showing it this way for clarity so you can understand how the space will work. But those will very likely be vegetated. And it's just a space that will have slightly improved. So it's even for, you know, you can put his tent on it still. You can have a picnic table sit even on it. So it's just going to be improved ground. There may be trees all through there. So it's just a space that can be used. So it's really more like 80 feet or more between spaces if you're talking about vegetation. So that's better than you're going to find probably anywhere. And I think in the last meeting we had with the zoning board, we had pictures of other campgrounds that had similar spacings that we had designed. And you get a good sense. And we have a pretty full revegetation plan. I looked at revegetating the old campground, so any gravel that's there is pulled up, new soil is brought in, or stuff is spread around, so seeds from on site are back in the ground, you know, where they are, and the sunlight coming in will help those grow. And also we're going to be, we mapped out the different forest communities there, and then using professional knowledge, but also the main DEP kind of list of plants for each type of forest community have sourced revegetation plants. So yeah, those are the small trees, but there's some different types of sods, there's different types of small shrubs and plugs, and there's a whole plan and seeding that you can do in those areas to try to get it to grow back as fast as possible, so you get coverage anywhere that's disturbed, like along the new roads or in the areas that were the campground before, which we're now beyond. The spacing also being that great gives us flexibility. Right, so they are a little oversized in length, and they are spaced out a little more in width. That allows us, if we come up to a giant hemlock, no one here wants to cut down a giant hemlock. We can go around it. We can shift the campground left, right a little bit. And if one campground is up 25 feet away instead of 50 feet away, but we save the giant red oak, everyone's happy, right? Like no one's gonna freak out about that. Right now, the camping spaces are 5 feet far or less. They're just continuous, so this is going to be a pretty vast improvement over that. There will be some stuff that comes down, obviously, so we have not just the revegetation planting, but we have full-size, you know, 3-inch caliper trees, like see this tree go in, and those have a pretty good growth rate on them. So I'm and some shrubs and some, again, some sod that will peel in the edge of the road and seeded, of course, over that. So it'll be a little bit of a battle for supremacy between plants after that, which is great. That's the thing that went out. And signage, I don't want to poo-poo the signage in the bathrooms, but we also been working with the DOT and with Tom about the DOT has a scenic byways program where they have educational signage that's all over Maine. I talked to the guy in charge of that and with Tom, and he talked to Tom as well. And he put us in touch with the fabricator and kind of the designer for these educational signage, so we can have the 24 by 36 kind of tabletop thing. So we can have one at the trailhead if needed, or we can talk about the firewood and the woolly adelgid at the hemlocks, and it can talk about vernal pools in one area. So we could, mix it up a little bit, and it sounds like Tom had some ideas, which we passed along to this guy, and he's gonna kind of work with the story and graphics for this, and it's a high school edition. So that's another thing that's in the works. And
I have another question. Now, I know this is a preliminary plan that may be too detailed, but increasing the visitor population is going to increase the traffic, walking traffic, draining out of that and crisscrossing the road to the mountain, because that's a popular destination. And I didn't see a good walking path for the campers to access going across the road. And I know myself, I do it a couple times a week, it's pretty hazardous. And I'm just concerned as you get more people or more families that will naturally want to go to the mountain and then back to the campsite. So
yeah, we agree with you, and right
and
now.
you can't walk on the road, because if you have a 40-foot trailer pulling in, you don't want the dogs and the kids, on the access road. So maybe
Yeah.
that's a next phase. I'm not clear.
The road, yeah, the road, obviously the crossing we talked about, and there is that existing path that goes across. We would love to get the cross lights in there and the same DOT contact.
So you keep that existing path as the plan, and then access that,
Yep.
path will funnel
That
from.
funnel through it, it's gonna connect into where the visitor area is right here. Like they continues up to this area right here, so as people filter down, they'll still cross through there, they'll still have access from that point. So you wanna keep the pedestrians and the pedestrians
Right.
out of the vehicles and vehicles out, because those mixing.
So I would assume I'm scale.
Yeah.
But on the larger one, where you have larger spaces between sites, there may also be a connector walking path.
Yeah, the road will all have shoulder as well as paved width, and the paved width is 16 feet wide. Any vehicle is only 6 or 7 feet wide at most, because highways all have to accommodate the same vehicles, so all vehicles are the same. So you have 10 extra feet, and the speed in the campground is pretty slow, and people with cameras are pretty good about that, especially with the large vehicles. And if they're not, Chris is gonna beat them up, so that's okay.
That was also a big reason why we wanted to make sure we one-way roads to not have
Yeah.
two-way traffic next to
Really
where
clear,
people
yeah.
have kids camping.
So you guys probably didn't see the circulation pattern, it's the one with the red and blue arrows. There we go. So you can see the red arrows are where it's two-way, and the blue arrows point in the direction where it's one-way. So other than right at the front, everything's gonna be one-way. You're pulling in past the visitor thing, and you're driving in loops, and you either pull through sites or back into sites to access them. So there's no speeding vehicles, you're not swinging out into traffic, or pulling into the left lane to back into the right lane, none of that. So try to keep it as simple as possible.
So is that some parking where you come in and you can take a right, and it looks like a parking lot?
Yep.
So that if I just want to ride my bike on that side of the road,
Yeah.
I can park.
Absolutely, you can connect right to the trail. So we have parking, we talked about the queuing space from the road to the check-in area, which was 400 feet, which is great, because right now it's 0 feet, which is bad. In the parking area, that you've got the road that connects all the way through, and you can see the little parking spots on the left for just cars, and that's so they can stop, get out, the kids can hit the bathroom, and the parents can check in. But on the outside of that road, there's 300 feet of of large vehicle parking areas. So even if you had a 25-foot long truck with a 45-foot long trailer, and you could fit 6 of those in that area. So, you know, not every vehicle is going to be that big, but we were kind of tasked with fit half a dozen in there, and so that's how the biggest vehicles allowed on a road. That's how we sized it. So you can get quite a few large vehicles parked in there as well. They wouldn't be able to turn around. Obviously, they would have to turn around, but yeah. So that's right here. It's on this outside right here.
This doesn't show.
Yeah. Yep. And then of course the small vehicles park in there, and it all walks over to the visitor center, and sidewalks pick people up at the corners and across to the bathroom. So the pedestrian circulation again is obvious, clear where you have to go. Crosswalks to the bathroom, because obviously that's the first thing. And yeah, probably.
There's no change to that check-in on your side.
No, the day you sign will stay the same. That case.
I had one other thing to say. I totally forgot it.
Okay.
Well, I have one more question for you. Which I asked last time. How many acres are now gravelled surface area versus vegetated?
I'm really going to address that. So right now, the increase in spaces is 10 officially.
Yeah, so 33 drive to.
Right, so we have an increase of 10 spaces, which is not huge in volume, given everything that's happening, and it's something onto a state road, which does handle big traffic. So 10 is not a huge number. I know that's a judgment call, but so by spreading it out, right, you get more space between campgrounds, so you get a little more isolation, but it makes the campground bigger. Right now, the campsites are adjacent and very tight, right? Like you can't, with all the gravel spread, you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Like when they went out to do the survey, they're gonna do a gravel edge. There's no gravel edge to get because it's gravel. So it's 10 acres now, but it's like it's 70% gravel, like it's a lot of gravel. And so now we're up to like, yeah, 24 acres, but that 24 acres also includes the huge area that goes out to the hiking sites, which is literally no disturbance at all, like it's just gonna be. Yeah, it includes the stormwater buffers and stuff.
If you take 1, 2, 3, 4 16-foot wide roads on whatever couple hundred feet they are, plus the width and length of each of those turnings.
Yep.
That's, I
We
haven't
have
done
all-
my grid, I
You
don't
have
have
that
my
in
grid dot thing, but
Yeah, we do have all of that information as part of what we submitted to DEP. I can make sure to bring those numbers next
that would
time.
be interesting because as Conservation Commission and Land Trust, we're very concerned about increased surface runoff. And
we are-
this all drains, into the Royal River and,
We are capturing stormwater runoff from 98% of impervious surfaces that we are developing. And
are you
directing them,
building retention ponds? I mean, I hike this a lot and it's very swampy. And
we're directing it to upland areas that are not wetlands, that are forested today, that will remain forested with, what's called a level lip spreader, which takes the water in like a ditch-like feature with riprap, slows it down, allows it to cool down and stop how fast it's moving, and spill over slowly into the forested area, dispersed out across a 100-foot width, and flow through, and at least 100-foot length in the forest. It's deed restricted, can never
can you
be.
show us where that is? Like,
Oh, it's the whole
Around,
perimeter of the
What's
around
that?
everything.
It's the whole perimeter of the campground. So there's like it's like deeded space, that's how wide.
It varies, so some areas are just buffer, deed restricted.
They're
No level
they're
lip
already swampy
And-
now, and
These are not match wetland areas. You cannot use a match wetland to do this. It's
beyond the map. Okay.
Okay.
Is all underground electrical?
generators still allowed?
They're allowed now, there's generator hours from 8 AM to 8 PM. So if you're camping, somebody running a generator, an enjoyable experience. With having electrical power to the drive on sites, it will eliminate generators.
Okay, well, there'll be policy no generators.
I don't know if there'll be a policy that's no generators. I mean, what will happen is, I mean, if you're a camper and you've got your generator that you've got to put gasoline in or you can plug into the electric that you've already paid for, you know, people are going to do that. In the event of a power outage, we're not going to be like, you can't run your generator. We have not in any of the campgrounds, you know, created a prohibition of generators, but I just think that it's not going to be prevalent at all. Certainly something we can think of, but not in our plans to say no, but I think people are gonna do it on their own.
All right. All right, this will be the last question, then we'll talk about procedures going forward.
Like plans for EV fast charger type of stuff, or just you're not gonna go down that route?
Well, not with this particular project. I mean, it's certainly in our other, you know, plans and objectives. I mean, state parks, in my opinion, are ideal. You know, I mean, you're going to a place, you're gonna spend, you know, especially in the day area or, and certainly in the campground, but, you know, you're going to the day area, you're gonna spend 3 or 4 hours there, maybe more, plug in, charge up, have fun, come back, and you're all ready to go to your next destination. We were working with a company, I think they were called Rivian, and we were really close to getting a bunch of them put in, and they had this sort of like philanthropic arm for public destinations, and I guess their bottom line was getting a little too close to where they wanted it to be, and so unfortunately that fell apart in the 11th hour, but not part of this project, very much on our radar. You will see in the state parks in the future, hopefully sooner than later.
All right. Just want to talk about procedure, and we'd welcome your input on this, but I want to sort of give you a sense of what our perspective is. So this is the biggest site plan review we've seen in a long time. I know you guys have been extremely collaborative so far and open, and I can say, and I think for the whole board, we're very appreciative of that. This is a gem in Pownell, and the fact that you've recognized that and sort of kept the town involved is just very much appreciated. It's also changed a little bit, and so I want to make sure that the town has a chance to comment, and so I'd advocate for a public hearing for this at either our next meeting or the next meeting that you feel if there are any changes from tonight that you want to make before that. I'd like it to be close to a complete application before the public hearing so that we don't have to sort of make you do more than necessary. Folks on the board feel like a public hearing makes sense for this? Okay. I think it also makes sense to add, if there are changes that we'd like to see for the next meeting and public hearing, I think it probably makes sense to advise the group of that now so that we can see any of those changes in advance of the public hearing. I think we spoke about a few very minor things tonight, but I think substantively the plan is pretty close to complete. Tom, I'd welcome your input on that in terms of completeness, and then.
In terms of completeness for public hearing, one would be a resolution to how many walk-in sites are conceivable. There's some confusion out there that grades 5 and 7, it might be 9. So, just for a point of clarification, so on the new site, once you've arrived at the maximum walk-ins, then that that's what the public hearing.
We are at 7 right now.
Seven.
We're at 7.
Is that what your intended maximum? What about that subway?
There are some possibilities, but we talked about those heated runoff things, and you can't put anything across them. So we know there is space, but it's not like legally usable space, which makes us way more hemmed in than it looks like.
Well, to the board and to the applicant, I think that's important, education of value is really, so if that, then also.
Interpretive panels, that was advanced. We do have an interpretive specialist that we work with. She is very energetic and loves these type of projects.
I would love to work with her on the Woolly Adulthood,
Yeah.
having had a lot of experience with the Woolly Adulthood. Lastly, it's important to, on that final plan, to have that final plot as Adrian has put, for the new well, which has been drilled. You said it's in the adjacent area of lot 21.
Yeah, it's shown on the plans that we have submitted and it was drilled in that. And yeah, next to the site. We do have an extensive plan set that went to DEP, that just hasn't come to you yet, and we're happy to provide that.
I think what we can do with that in front of the planning board members is that we see probably 3 sets of that. I know it's extensive, but our conservation commission should have a set of that. We should have an internal set and then a set for review the planning board and at the function.
Yeah,
So
we
I can
provide it digitally as well.
Yeah, I can work with you on that, Adrian. I think that's easy resolution. Additionally, hats off to the team, Matt, depending on what the vote is about a public hearing, they've already prepared, the envelopes, they're ready to all the abutters. Great. So we're ready for it if that's the board's.
And that would, are those letters already signed, like put in there? or
Just
are we-
the envelopes
Okay, all right.
themselves.
I was gonna say, that's a little pretty.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
It's,
We're going to make the date for you.
it was just anticipatory.
I got you.
This
Okay.
question, but no
That
letters.
was very fine, okay.
If you need help with the letters, we can type them up for you. We're happy to help.
I think a July public hearing probably makes sense unless you need more time to get those.
That's great.
Marcia?
So I have one concern, and I know Rosita's here tonight. She was one of the authors of the letter we got. I went to the last public hearing and I remember Chris saying, well, where is everybody? Because it wasn't advertised on the town website. So I guess my concern with saying, well, this plan is close to complete, is that we are going to hear from people who are surprised, and I guess I have a personal, not a planning board, but a personal objection to huge RVs coming through. So I think we will probably be hearing from other people at this public hearing because the town will now advertise it. So I'm just saying that the plan is completely complete might be optimistic.
Yeah, so let me clarify that. So procedurally, we can make a completeness review and
Right.
still ask for changes. So this process is iterative. We may have a public hearing and ask you for further changes and not make a final vote, but instead ask for further changes. So I don't want to suggest that merely saying that the application is complete for purposes of public hearing means that it's an up or down vote, even as far out as August or September. I mean, it could be a while.
Okay, thanks for.
Yeah.
And just one thing on the public hearing too, as part of the DEP process, which was sent out after our first zoning board meeting, we did send notices and advertise in the local paper and the Portland Press Herald. And the notices went to all 500 abutters, the entire state. So, those people may not have come, but they may have seen something about it at this point, and that would be the same group that gets.
Okay, good. Thanks for saying that, because I saw that in the paper the night of, and I said, whoa. You know,
Yeah.
it's too bad that couldn't have been the town. Well, I understand why the town couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else from the board? No?
Just a comment on those EV chargers. Rivian, just got told out ago, $5 billion from Volkswagen. And those offers are 23. So maybe. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But it's definitely, we want to move in that direction. You know, one of the things we haven't mentioned today, you know, is you know, it's not gonna be initially part of this project, but it's, you know, we wanna going to the next phase, moving towards that. A lot of these buildings are positioned for, put solar panels on the roof in the future. But again, the installation of the panels is not gonna be part of this, but, you know, we are looking at adding those in the future when more monies become available. I don't have an electric vehicle yet, but I do know that, you can, you know, trickle charge them just by plugging in. So if you are at one of these campsites and you're, you know, and it's got the electric, you can plug it in and, well, it's not fast charge, but you can still boost it, so, but that's good to know about right now.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
give you one more chance. We do have to sort of wrap up. I know.
I mean, so then things like that, so do us taxpayers pay for people to be able to charge their 40-foot RVs? Do they have to pay incrementally if they use more services?
No.
I don't know how it works.
Yeah, no, it's a $10 a night increase on the electric and water, site. So it's $10 more a night. And they can use that 110, outlet to charge their, cell phone, or, you know, I don't know if there's any electric campers yet, but, if they, you know, are hauling a smaller vehicle that has is an electric vehicle, they can plug that in.
And also, there's
The state pays the-
sewage disposal site. Do they, the big 40-footers and 30-footers that are gonna use that, do they pay something for the privilege?
No, it's included in the cost of camping, that amenity of dumping.
So a 40-foot RV that dumps a lot pays the same fee as the little guy that comes in with his little teeny camper.
Ryan.
I have a final thought, Jerry. Just like, you know, this is a special park. I think everybody knows that this is a special park. We have a hidden gem, right? And we, you know, and we're fortunate in our community to have this here, and kind of the entire state is footing the bill for us to preserve and have this special park and have great staff maintaining it. And, you know, we want to keep a gem, but, you know, in some ways it's kind of fair that we open it up a little bit to have more people in the state be able to experience this, and slightly less of a hidden gem, but still preserve it as a gem, I think is the goal.
Thank you.
Well said.
Very well said. All right. Do you have any questions for us? Are we clear on sort of next steps? Any?
Yeah, so the July, public hearing.
Yep.
Do you know the date of that?
That will be the third Wednesday in July,
Okay,
as long as that works
And
for
that's-
everybody here.
going to be a meeting here like this, but with noticing and open to the public.
Yeah.
Official.
I think we'll probably just check in with the select board and the town clerk to make sure that that works. It might be that they want us to do it in the school or some other location, depending on how much interest they anticipate.
Yep.
Um,
And then there was one other thing that I believe, Tom indicated we might want to ask, is if we wanted to do a site walk. I think possibly you needed to welcome it if you want to, but also if you're familiar.
Sounds like all of us are there about once or twice a week, but I mean, honestly, though, I've never walked the campground, so I don't, I welcome the board's input on this.
I think we should walk the campground. I don't know if we need to site visit because we're all here, but I think you should watch the campground.
I think it's, I lean towards a site walk because we're having a public hearing, but I think the site walk is another opportunity for the general public to walk it with the planning board and see it in person, potentially.
On a Saturday meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Fourth of July weekend.
I hear that point, and I'm always in favor of sort of being open. I also think my experience with sidewalks is it's really hard to sort of herd everyone
Yeah.
together. There's a lot of room for sort of side conversations with board members, which is fine, we're neighbors, but it also kind of upsets the process a little bit. My take is
everything that needs to happen, that would happen at a sidewalk can happen individually if people go or at a public hearing.
Could we have the sidewalk the same time as the public hearing at 5 o'clock? So that we go there and then come here? I mean, that's how other towns do it a
People are
lot,
coming.
so.
Please.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think about that? How would you feel about like maybe 50, 60, 70 folks descending on the campground?
One thing is, I want to be there. But we do. You know, make sure, yeah, 60. That's kind of bridging.
Let me ask you this, what if we put in the hearing notice that the site is public and people are welcome to walk the campground if they choose to do so beforehand? Would that be okay? I mean, it's an open like state
We
land.
just want it to legally, I think that my understanding is either need to vote as a board that you are waiving.
Oh,
the
sure,
walk,
sure.
Or that you're requiring it, and we don't want it to be a gray area that could get all up in the.
Yep,
future. We want it to
great
be
point.
clear.
Yeah, all right.
I was just gonna say, I mean, we can walk the existing campsite, but we're not really gonna be able to walk the proposed campsite, and you're gonna be out in the middle of the woods, so I don't know that the sidewalk would be beneficial. I mean, we all do know what the existing.
I think that's my only point, is the board hasn't been in that campground.
We'd be very open and in many ways prefer some type of a site visit, not an individual one, just to make sure we're adhering to the process. I hear what you're saying as far as when you have a big group, you get these little groups, but to make sure that people all hear the same thing. One question is asked and everyone gets the same answer. Totally hear what you're saying, Chris, about infringing on the campers' privacy and enjoyment of the park, but as far as the process goes, I just, this has been quite a journey, and I just don't want to misstep, and then, because we didn't do the site walk, that there's something that comes back later.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. If you guys want to build the record that there's been a site walk, that's
Yeah, we
fine.
really would.
Okay, all right. I leave it to the board to figure out, is,
I think we actually said we wanted to sidewalk through whatever major subdivision. Well, we said that the town was owed that, and this is going to be a pretty major project, so maybe this is something that's on the calendar.
Right.
Maybe not for 5 PM, but kind of before it, that's not competing with people's stuff, but
yeah.
it might be something that if this is gonna be a big project. Should be.
I think it does make sense to have the site walk before the public hearing, like at some point before the public hearing, not immediately before, but.
Distance, then it'd be better to have it the same way, right?
I just recommended that because I know that's how other towns often do it, is so that the board members are already kind of planning to be here that night.
I like that
But
because
it does turn into a
limits
long
the
night.
time too, because you get 5 o'clock, we gotta be at the town hall by 6, so.
Yeah,
I kind of like that.
that's pretty standard for.
Right, that's why I
every
said
other
it.
town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any survey marks out there showing like minimally the perimeter of, the outer edges of this, or?
We could,
There's no property lines that really define this.
there's some
It's all
general,
owned.
we could probably flag it out a little bit beforehand too, to make sure that we can walk hoops and you can see where.
Yeah, we'll see
I
what the
also
outer
have, could walk us and be like, we're standing at site 6, like.
We'll prepare something to make
Yeah.
it useful.
Yes, there's some context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's plan for a site walk, 5 PM, July 17th. And Chris, I think we ought to be in touch. Maybe you and Tom can be in touch about where exactly to meet there at the site, because it sounds like meeting at the campgrounds doesn't.
You want a motion for that?
We
don't need one.
I don't think we need one for scheduling.
And then the public hearing would be that same night.
Yep.
Starting at 6 here.
So I'll put both of those in the public notice.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate your time. You guys were very patient with us. Yep.
There's one other point. After the public hearing. One issue.
So I think with a plan of this size, it makes sense to at least anticipate that we'll go out to August before deliberating.
Next hearing for the board after the vote.
That would be the third Wednesday in August.
Exactly, yep. Yeah, I wanted to say the whole time, I kept on forgetting. You guys were welcome to sit. Sorry, that's too little, too late. I apologize. All right, thank you, guys. We really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. We have a lot to pack up, so I apologize.
No,
We're
you're,
gonna have to make.
Matt, I do have one.
Thank you,
question
Andrew.
about all this from a board's perspective. What exactly would our role be
Yeah.
in terms of looking at this? What's our role? What are we voting on? What are we looking for to approve or not approve? And this doesn't follow any zoning laws. I don't, of our ordinances, so I'm not even too sure.
so the application is for site plan. So this is a site plan application. Those conclusions of law that we sped through last time.
Right.
Those are the performance standards. So if, and every member of the planning board who votes is welcome to make a determination on their own based on the findings, based on what the record presents, so what's been told to us about whether the application meets those performance standards. We don't have to vote unanimously by any means, the majority rules. And those criteria are the ones that you need to vote on. The criteria should, I think, must, to build a record, be tied to evidentiary facts. So if you, that can be as simple as the board finds the application is complete and here's the site plan description. It's helpful with bigger projects to have individual findings of fact underneath each. With a project like this, I would often, if there's opposition in town, it's helpful to anticipate that, to sort of push projects out and involve the town's attorney, Natalie Burns, so that she can give advice, she can come and observe and give advice on what the findings should be, what findings are supported.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you as members have to vote consistent with what she says, but she can help. It saves the town money, saves applicants money to make sure that it's not up for appeal in a way that's sort of unnecessary. So it's a really good thing to do. And I think in my time on the board, we've generally moved things through pretty quickly. I think that's a mistake and we should be taking more time. I feel bad
Well-
saying that at this point. But I think it's a good thing to do to say,
I think it's a good thing to take time, but I also think if we look at an application and if we personally don't like something in it, but we know in our heart that there's nothing really in it that legally to say no to, then we shouldn't slow down applications. We should make them go through quickly. And yes, people might not like certain things, but it's not our job to say, we don't like something. It's our job to look at what is the rules of the town and apply them. So if we look at a project and we feel like it follows the rules that are written, then we should move it through the process as quickly as possible. That's fair for the applicant
Yeah.
and the town.
I think what I said, I hear what you're saying. I didn't mean to suggest
Yeah.
that people should be voting on their personal sort of.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that it's clear because I've never seen actually Brian once voted against an item one time. I think it's important to realize, like, the
Yeah.
board doesn't need to act unanimously. That having been said, our job is not to impose our personal beliefs, but to follow the law. That's a really good point. And I think everybody here does that routinely.
Yeah.
So moving forward, Tom, is that something that you would help the board to go through those the details of that and whether or not?
Absolutely, and I think in July, we should talk about that whole site plan review process. There are some components of it that are tired and archaic. There are other portions that need to, particularly, and we can start with the application form. because it doesn't add enough clarity as to the applicant. Do I do this? Do I do that? There's a half a page of the waivers. Some of those things should be done as a matter of right or a waiver requested. In this particular case, because the magnitude of it being one of your larger site plan reviews, there's one additional factor that complicates the approval process. You can approve, but in this case, you're going to need to approve without question with conditions. And some of those conditions, one that's quite apparent to everyone, will be all the state approvals that are necessary.
Yeah.
The DEP process is sometimes talk about slow and burdensome. I doubt it'll be done in August or September. So your approval, should one come in August, September, needs to be subject to, unless all the state approvals are in hand. So, so that's a long answer to your question, Todd, but yes, I'll be monitoring those sort of details. At the same time, Marcia and I have started to talk about how do we start to begin to tackle the whole site plan review process, because there's more and more of them coming, and it's almost feeling like it's on a monthly basis. There'll be another one coming next month, another new one. So the application form I'd like to tackle first, because that's going to make your work more efficient, and it's going to make the applicant deliver you the details that you need up front.
Can I make a point about that? I fully agree. We had an application a year or two ago where it became apparent that the scope, the scope of it was almost entirely outside of our purview, but I think it was a huge project. But it wasn't subject to site plan review because it was a huge greenhouse, right? I want to make a point that we should revise the site plan ordinance so that gravel pits and commercial greenhouses are subject to site plan review. I think those two exceptions should have some oversight from the town, and they effectively don't. I think those are quick changes.
Another point to consider, and we'll talk more about this next month, is when a site plan is approved and the applicant decides to amend it, either due to a lack of detailed engineering in the beginning, and they make discoveries that, oh, we've got to change the site plan. One of the things that we're talking about with the select board is the fee structure. And if it has to come back to the planning board as an amended, minor or major, then the fee structure is going to have to be modified also. I'll be talking with the select board about major overhaul of the field fee structure, particularly in terms of subdivisions. There's nothing in the fee schedule that addresses conservation subdivision. So nothing at all. No fee structure.
Because there used to be major subdivisions.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that hasn't been changed. I thought John explained to us that that would just be spot, that they don't need to vote or anything to do that, or maybe they need to vote as a select board, but not.
No, yeah, because it falls in their purview, all the fee schedules. I believe they're gonna tackle that next month,
Okay.
just for clarity, update certain things.
Okay.
And one of the things that's absent is what do you do when you have an amendment to the site plan? You'll be seeing one of those next month. Jenny and I have been talking with Estabrook. They're gonna make a minor change, but it is a change to their site plan review.
Okay.
So.
Jenny, you had I think you were about to.
Yeah, it was just that maybe if we're gonna do pits and greenhouses, that maybe we just do a site plan review for the possibility of all commercial buildings. Instead, that way, because I noticed that we have a big gap from commercial to residential. Not a lot to go by, even in our ordinances.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because there was one recently that fell through the cracks that Board of Appeals now on, so.
Oh.
Would that count for greenhouses though? Because that was under like, oh, this is a farming thing, and so farming is separate. And we're not counting a greenhouse as a building, it's counted as farming.
We only voted on the stormwater and the road, right?
Yeah, I think what happened, so. If anyone else
was
remembers
considered
better than I do.
agriculture.
What's agriculture,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's an
we
exclusion
were allowed
from
to
site plan
ask
review.
right.
Yeah.
I do believe we voted on the road, or did we not? I think we did vote on the road. I know we voted on the stormwater.
The parking area,
Yeah.
yeah, we voted on. On the, yeah,
The
the,
stormwater from the area.
right.
Regarding kind of what we just looked at, I mean, my initial thought is that, you know, like, we're not experts in what a state park should look like, right? They're the experts in what a state park look like. And I think it's fine for the town to say, we'd like to see X, Y, and Z. But to me, I'm hesitant for the planning board to have a demanding, we want a specific change unless there's like overwhelming, reason to, to try and change the plan, I feel like kind of the burden is on us to justify if we're asking for some dramatic change in some ways. There's the usual stuff like, yeah, we want to make sure the road is safe, but to be well, we'd rather there be less RVs. That's
Yeah.
kind of a personal choice, and they can listen to us or not, but if this is the state saying, this is the state park and this is what we think the state park needs, my attitude is somewhat deferential to that.
I think the best practice is to have those I'm not sort of shooting it down. I think the best practice is to have those comments made when the applicant is present. and
Yeah.
The public is here. I will say, I think, sorry, turning the pumpkin. I can't remember exactly what I was gonna say, but it doesn't matter.
I think it's whether it's our mobile home park or campground or whatever, it's a fine line between what might be our personal opinion, what we want versus what is consistent with the way we want the rural town to feel like. And so I mean, anyone could argue that, well, there's nothing in the ordinance about 40-foot RVs, so and that's true. But we also have a little bit of flexibility in terms of, well, we talked about buffers. Remember we had this
Yeah.
whole discussion about buffers. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you attended the appeals board meeting on that. This room was crowded, and there are a lot of folks who are gonna feel the need to speak. We kind of didn't allow that for another day they would be able to speak. So it's emotional.
Yeah.
For people, you can tell that tonight. Whether you have a 40-foot camper or 20-foot camper, the waste is pretty much the number of people that are in the camper. They don't have bigger tanks.
Yeah.
So, but it's important for people to be heard. And it is hard to I have to do that every day, keep my own personal judgment out of my decisions. And just do what is.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think one of the things about the tension in the public meetings like this is there's a need for the town to be heard, both legally, you have to have the due process there. And it's good, it's a best practice, right? But also, I think folks sort of have this sense that if there's opposition, and the opposition is loud enough, then the project should get shot down. And so I think it helps. At the meetings where I've anticipated opposition, I've tried to remind people, this isn't like a democratic process. And that sounds really bad, right? But it's important to say, we actually have a set of ordinances that we need to follow, just like Orion was saying. We don't get to sort of impose our decision as neighbors. We do it as volunteers who are here to do what the town has asked us to do through the ordinances. And I think the one.
Kudos to the state for actually even coming to us. I think that's
Exactly.
very important, and not to mention, even Tom can verify with me that they did a number of changes since the time they became the appeals board to where they are today. So they did listen to the community.
And they didn't have to. I just want to add one thing. This is more of a parting observation. I think when I watched Bo at the town meeting a bunch of times, right? He does a great job. The normal like Robert's rules way of handling meetings is that comments from the crowd and questions from the residents go through the moderator or the chair. I think in Pownell, we have such small meetings that it's like more organic often, but if there's a bigger crowd, if there's people in the crowd who you know are going to be oppositional or, you know, adversarial, really, if there's any sort of scope that it's anticipated, that should, I haven't done a great job of observing that. And I think it's something that can be done to kind of calm people down a lot better, and just maintain order, you know? And I think it's helpful to know that from the rest of the board's perspective too, to sort of realize, oh, okay, someone asked a question or made a comment. I don't need to jump in and respond, right? There's some time here. We can just move on to the next person, right? That's okay to do. So.
Good point.
And then you're gonna leave us.
I know, and now I'm gone.
This is what you should do from now on. Bye, guys.
It's really ironic. I feel awful.
No, you've been crucial to the board, and we very much appreciate all the time and energy you put into it.
Yeah, I was hunting for that. Thank you.
I forgot the lines.
That's fine. Jamaica?
No.
There's one.
Are you gonna come to the next site walk even though you're not on the planning board?
I swear to you, I have to be at a public meeting for
Something
another
else.
town.
All right, all right.
However sad that is, my first meeting off. We do have other items though.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah.
Town meeting results. Did everyone keep track of that? It was a great,
Still gotta do the minutes real quick.
oh, yes, thank you. I have to admit, I did
move
not
to,
review them.
Accept the minutes as amended.
A second. Motion carries. Thank you, Marcia. Town meeting results.
The ordinance is passed. The FEMA ordinance went through and I gave Becky the new maps to put on the website. And the easement, warrant article passed as well, so. it's all good.
Was that one close or was it pretty unanimous?
It was like 4 or 5 that voted against, but it was everybody else voted for.
It's good. Impressive.
I have repeatedly forgot to send Heidi Richards, the young woman who's the head of the solid waste committee, a note to say thank you. She did an extraordinary job. If you guys run into her in town.
Officially on the record, the members of the planning board commend the work of the waste committee.
Exactly. I mean, the town, people were upset because we're changing, but we were forced into it by Casella and she just did this amazing job of explaining it. And, yeah.
I would have lost my cool.
We have great volunteers in the town.
Yes. Tom, do you want to give an update on water capacity?
Yes, July 2nd, I'll be meeting with the entire environmental team from Drumlin. I've already put together all the mega data, particularly in terms of aquifer locations. I'm going to be securing what Adrian spoke to on the recent well data, although our investigatory well is likely not to be in that Proximus. That is really vital data. And it's gallons per minute. She hadn't mentioned it, unless I missed it. It was close to 50 gallons per minute. So that's a good indicator. And I think if we put all that geological information together, I just don't want them to waste time or the townspeople's money on gathering up data that already exists in the custom. So I've already gathered all that, and the July 2nd meeting is to kind of get our focus, establish the timelines. We're hoping that the complete project will be done and completed, subject to getting a well driller. They're in demand and they're hard to get for this particular project. So I've already sort of set some guidelines that that's what we do first. After we establish our timelines, we get right out and try to get a placeholder with a bow driller. And hopefully by, or prior to Thanksgiving, the study will be complete. And that gets us to the next phase where I'll be bringing those results to the planning board so we can begin to talk about is it conceivable that we can begin to build a village? And how do we want to do that? Based on the visioning that's been done, based on the COG study that's been performed, and based on new geological information. So I'm really pleased. It's coming together well. It's a small enough environmental firm that they're going to pay a lot of attention to the town, and that's good. We're going to get our money's worth.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Did you skip the elections in the agenda?
Yeah.
Was it really?
This is,
He did that purposely.
I did not do that purposely. No, we have to decide on, board composition and so forth from July.
So let's do the 81 first. Brian, are you intending to stay on the board?
I am.
Because your term expires, so.
It does? I wasn't even aware of that. I don't know.
I thought it did.
I thought it was next year he expires.
Be on the website.
Is that on the website?
I mean, I could be wrong.
Would that change your decision?
No.
Whether to stay?
No.
It's like, get me off this merry-go-round.
It's 3-year terms, right?
I think it's 5-year terms.
Yeah, I think I've been doing this for at least 4 years. maybe
So it
five.
says expiration 2024. Is that July to, is it, maybe it's December? I thought it was July. We were on a fiscal,
I think it's July.
Mine's up in 25, so Brian and I think joined at the same time, pretty much.
I think the weird thing is they don't have you, they have you join in
Taking
place
up
of someone
somebody
else.
else, yeah.
So that's why it's off. It's
Yeah.
just, I don't think the terms matter that much. I think, you know.
I don't know.
So if I'm invited back, I'll go another cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says 2024 on the website.
So do we have any candidates for chair?
Tom, have you heard anything from town? I know you were, I spoke to John Morris and he said that there was some canvassing happening in town. Is that right?
There is, but I'm not aware of this direction is.
So I will say what I've said before, which is I'm more than happy to help whoever takes on the chair role. Yes.
There's a lot of new projects forthcoming. And your largest will be a conservation subdivision. And I think you all been looking forward to. It's going to be a lot of work. So it's going to require leadership through the chair to tackle some of these new projects. I'll be there for any type of advisory assistance that you need, whether it's procedural or technical. I particularly like the technical aspects of these site plan reviews. And I'd like to see your conservation subdivision be a poster child for the state. That's going to require a lot of work, some of it requiring some negotiation on things that that are not part of the subdivision. We're placed in a very awkward, we being municipalities are placed in a very awkward position with the legislation that's come down from Augusta. It presents huge site planning complications to the point where we're seeing subdivisions for affordable housing in communities which I've never expected in my whole career to ever see. Look at the one in Cumberland. And what I could do is I'll bring to the next meeting some of those details. it's not what you anticipated in terms of affordable housing or workforce housing. So we need to create something that's going to work within the state guidelines, but at the same time, preserve the character that you all want to preserve. It's going to be a challenge. So looping back to Marcia's question about the vote, leadership's critical. Particularly for this board, because you're going to be handling some interesting cases in the next couple of years.
So to clarify, I believe Mercedes, you're the first alternate, correct?
Oh, yeah, I'm just excited.
So you'll be moving to the official board, and then we'll be looking for an alternate.
Yeah, so that's how Becky.
So
The difference if we have no
yeah, Brian.
Well, I mean, my issue is just kind of the time commitment and just kind of being on top of it. I mean, half the time I'm reading this stuff 30 minutes before I'm jumping in the car and rushing over here. So I mean, to Tom's point, kind of really being informed and having all that. I just don't know that I can commit to that, and been just trying to say no to more things over the last few years. I always take on too much. I'm doing this, some other corporate boards, some advisory stuff, and then just have a completely unpredictable work schedule where. So that's my hesitation to doing it. Maybe someday in the future when I'm half retired, have a little more time, but.
And I'll throw this out there, and I don't know how this would look. I think that one sort of way to handle this, that it would be educational for everybody and might actually really benefit the board, is to have like a rotating chair. So like a quarterly rotation or something along those lines. I think doing that is fairer in terms of the workload impact. I will say to that comment, I think Marcia takes the vast majority of the load of the work, and that shouldn't be left out of any conversation. I do think the addition first of North Star and then lately of Tom is just reduces the amount of sort of the subject matter expertise that we need. And it's more a matter of doing like a couple of hours rather than half an hour of work in advance of a meeting, which, you know, that and the time commitment with my kids and family is the biggest thing for me, the reason that I'm stepping down. But
Does the chair have to be the one that is in a way running the meetings or reading through all this stuff? And like, some ways that's somewhat daunting. If the planning director can be the one who goes like, okay, like this is the next part of the meeting and we're going to go through here, like, as opposed to us who are not used to running meetings, having to do that piece of it, maybe somebody would step forward.
so I can say before Tom answers, that is perfectly allowable. That's legal. It is okay to do, and there are towns that do it.
I think we're working in that direction. Let's break it into a couple of pieces. Agenda formation. In the past, Matt and Marcia worked on that and tried to refine it to the point that it would be workable. It won't get to the chair or the board unless the application is substantively complete. Okay, and I can guarantee you that. So that what we are reviewing is a complete application. If they paid their fee, they've done everything that you need to do. The chair shouldn't have to be burdened with that responsibility. In terms of clarification as to what's required in that first review, I try to pull out the things that are typically needed to be defined early. Public hearing, site inspection, deficiencies in the plan, in this case, state approvals. That work is done internally. The other thing that I'm getting ahead of myself for July's meeting, but on site plan review, with a refinement of that application form and with more staff support, not just from myself, but getting a documented letter from the fire chief, from the road commissioner, in some cases from the CEO, really helps the board, because those are critical pieces. In my background, I'm lucky to have some engineering background, so I'm able to pick up real quickly on engineering deficiencies. If it's something that's structural engineering, the board has the latitude and hasn't used it much in the past for peer review. And peer review is a direction that we're heading. In the case of Estabrooks, that's one that should have had some peer review in retrospect because of things like structural engineering. Very complex, particularly when the structure is being made outside the country. So these are things.
You mean the
that-
greenhouse?
Yes.
But we didn't have
Yeah,
jurisdiction over that.
we couldn't, we were told by the town's attorney that we could not review that.
That's where peer review comes in. You can review, but you need the expert opinion as it comes to structural engineering. Now the burden of proof had to go to the code enforcement officer for that structural review, and then an arrangement with the state of Maine. So it gets really complex.
I just want to, sorry, I don't mean to sort of, on that piece, the town's attorney's opinion was that the greenhouse was outside the scope of site plan review. And so we were not permitted to review that as a component of site plan review. So I thought the feedback from Natalie was very clear. That wasn't sort of within our scope. I want that to change. I want that to be something that should be within our scope and
Any type of development, commercial, residential, is within your scope. Although the review, if it's a technical review, that's where peer review comes in. Because we can't handle all of the professions that none of us know anything about. There's solutions to any type of development. At one point, 6 months ago, there was a California firm that approached me that wanted to do massive battery storage. And I mean massive, like a 50-acre site, just with battery storage. There's no criteria that we had for that review, but we would have had to tackle it as a site plan review. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been any local review at all. So no matter what the size of the commercial operation or the size of the subdivision, it requires site plan review. And but with all respect to Natalie, I think it was probably a different case of review back in that time with maybe some different site plan review standards.
yeah, I think it was an exception to the site plan review ordinance, but we don't, I mean, I think we can sort of figure that out on a going forward basis to make sure it's shorn up. I think,
Can I just make a recommendation? I'd like to say, getting back to the topic, maybe following your advice, we could elect an interim chair for 2 months. And then after 2 months, we'll elect another interim chair, and that way we can spread the wealth. And maybe we'll just go in alphabetical order, or some other, or years or whatever, just to at least have someone in place for the next couple of months.
Another approach is that, as some corporations do, they have a co-chair. And let's say it's out in Maui going to a dental conference. He can't make it. So there's a backup co-chair.
can we go back to Orion's question? I think his question was more about the
Running the meeting.
running the meeting.
And like saying, okay, now we're reading this part of the document, we need to vote on it, like some of us. Matt has a bit of a legal background, or someone else maybe have more experience at running meetings, and we don't necessarily be like, I don't want to go up there and be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. Tom, help me. Like, I'm happy to introduce the meeting and help go between topics, but like, while you're processing through these applications, not messing up and reading the wrong thing and stuff, can we say like, yeah, I'm the chair, I can introduce the meeting, but then we're doing site review, we're gonna pass over to the planning director, and he's gonna reel off the things that we need to vote on, so the chair doesn't have to stress about that aspect of it.
There's a combination of things, and you need to triangulate Robert's Rules of Order for one.
Yeah.
Two, the board as a whole, and Mercedes eloquently brought it out at a meeting prior. It might be beneficial to go to, refer to it, one of those boring MMA overviews of planning board procedure.
Yeah, July.
Is there, it's coming up in July?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get
July, I think it's July 30th. It's
Can you send
Tuesday.
it to me and I'll send it to you?
I will, because it was really, yeah, it's
I
like
would,
quasi judicial board. I mean,
I would encourage all the board members to see if you can possibly attend that.
I think Becky's working on it already. I asked her
Is she?
already.
Okay.
I don't know how many people how many spots she said.
you
Because
could tell Becky you want to go and she'll pay for you.
the town will take care of the fee. Just don't order up any filet mignons.
I do like, it's,
So you got the procedural, and then you also have, I think, a growing staff support to answer your question. I try to make my reviews really targeted of things that we're working on. Like when they spoke to the traffic engineer,
No,
they said, let's deal with.
no, your
one-
reviews and summaries are great. I'm just talking about in the meeting, there's these little things, rigmaroles we need to go through. Why does the chair have to be the one to keep track of like, okay, we just did this, now we need to do this? Could the chair, since you're an experienced plan guy, just say, for this piece of the meeting, I'm putting Tom in charge of going through the application and he's gonna read off the things and we're gonna vote on them. Take on the role of moderator.
Whatever would help the board, to be there for you. I say the complexities are getting more challenging, so we don't want to miss anything. I think that our both current and almost past chair reflected that on Bradbury. On the public hearings, you should really list it down, like the Board of Appeals did. Okay, it had a very precise protocol. And by following that protocol, one, it keeps it consistent. Okay, that you treat all applicants the same way. And secondly, you don't miss anything. So that's probably one of our best models in the community. I really like the way that's defined, and I think you amplified that.
Yeah, I use that as a model. So this is, so if folks are interested, this is the Board of Appeals agenda. They have effectively a like rubric that they use every single time. Starts with, do we have jurisdiction? They go through. I think it would need to be tweaked a fair amount for the planning board. We've made a decision that jurisdiction is present in the planning board usually before a decision is made. So like things like that. But that model is really useful. I tried to use that tonight. So the agenda, if you folks read it, reflected that. I think it's really useful in public hearings to say, here's the opportunity for the public to comment. Here's the opportunity for clarifying questions, just to like create order. Amanda, yeah.
Your agenda though, as far as, was not clear to me which items were public hearings. Because the stamped envelopes are a submission requirement. So we gave them to you anyway, so I assumed our application was a public hearing. But it
sorry.
wasn't clear on me, for any of the public that saw the agenda, wasn't clear.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do like the idea of shared chairmanship. It is a lot of work. I do think having run a couple of meetings.
Which you did a great job at, by the way. No, seriously, like,
I will say,
you did a good job.
and you get better with time. I think that's the key. I felt so incompetent the first time I did it. Even having like, advocated at planning board meetings, I felt very incompetent.
I'd be in the dentist and doing that.
Which is worse, a root canal or?
Doing the root canal, I don't think it's that hard, is it? We can all do it, right?
I think that's why I would lean more toward the if we didn't have someone rather than the rotating, because 2 months is not enough time. Like, I've been on this board for 2 years as an alternate, and I'm still learning. Like, I think a co-model, one, it's great if somebody is actually out, because we have someone who's really prepared to step in. And both of those people are learning as they go, and we're all watching you, like, we watch you every time. So, we are learning, I mean, not in a creepy.
I'd be willing, I'd be willing to be a co-chair if someone else wants to step up to be a co-chair with me. Anybody else? All right.
We could, I do think, Mercedes, you have to realize that none of us. So I went straight from an alternate and a month later, a voting member, and then like 3 months later, I'm the vice chair. On meetings. So we're all thrown into it. I did find the experience when Matt was not able to come, of doing the homework to run the meeting was incredibly valuable. It was stressful and a fair amount of work in the beginning. But it was a valuable learning experience for sure. And I have and I've told Matt this in the past, I have a great appreciation for how you've run meetings over the last few years. So thank you.
I will say, I will happily spend like 3 hours on the phone in advance of a meeting, walking you guys through what I think should happen, the sort of things to watch out.
Can we have a bug in our ear and you can tell us what to say when we're.
Just like baby steps.
Right there, the procedural piece is what would throw me off. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
attorney, you know that that's like ingrained, but
Like
just
for
on the
this
fly
meeting,
having that.
sorry. Like for this meeting, I was trying to find the document for site plan approval. And I found one from 2001. And that was the last one I found. So I rewrote it and added all the pieces. And that must be
And-
what you used.
Yeah, then I
right?
doctored that. I mean, I used it basically wholesale and then just,
That just shows we don't, you know, there's systems, we need systems.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and try to update that and send you like a revised version so that we have those.
I think
We should have one for subdivision as well.
Matt, if you could do that, also, if the board is leaning towards the sort of chairmanship, then also know that I'm available for briefings prior to the
Yeah.
meeting. I think,
Yeah.
I'm just a real advocate of briefings and
Yeah.
also debriefings.
Right.
Because it helps each one get better. And so if we find any deficiencies or if the board has ways that you would like to suggest where we can make improvements, then let's do it. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. But first, you have to make a vote tonight, who the co-chairs are or a chair.
I move that Orion and Todd serve as co-chairs for the 2024-25 term.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you guys immensely. I
You
feel
do the work
so-
of two men, Matt.
I feel so bad for leaving. This is.
No, no,
time
you-
I
you-
don't have time
You
in my
put your
life.
time in. You don't need to feel bad. You did your service.
Make you feel bad enough on the street.
Yeah, yeah. No. I know we're like his family, but he actually has a real family.
I think we do have other agenda items.
Yeah.
So
do we officially vote yes, 5 more years for Brian? Did we?
I think so. Well, I think Brian, do we need to? I don't think so.
All those in favor, 5 more years for Brian? Aye.
I think the select board appoints.
Okay,
Once it expires.
great.
So we circulated the conservation and minor subdivision checklists. I think the big changes were the ones that Marcia and I made on that conservation checklist. I tried to flesh out the concept plan.
Hmm.
Let's see. Or I'm sorry, the lot density plan. And I don't have mine in color, so I can't see your changes, Marcia. Which side?
I have mine in photo. So my reword was the lot density map shows the theoretical number of lots that could be developed using 300 feet of contiguous road frontage. Each proposed lot, a conservation subdivision, and the rest of it's the same.
Okay,
So just a little bit of. It's a hard concept, so I was just trying to make it a little bit easier. I'm not-
Tom, on this point, I think since you're gonna be the first one to look at this,
Yes.
I wanna make sure that what we've set out here is clear. Is it,
It's clear, but there could be more clarity.
okay,
In terms of making it easier for the board at that first look, at your first major conservation subdivision, it needs to be very graphic, and I would like to suggest to the board that the applicant provide graphics that show you precisely what a total build out would be if built conventionally, and what the same total build out would be and what it would look like graphically if it were to be a conservation subdivision. That should be the starting point for all applicants and developers on something as large as this. It means a significant financial commitment, but this whole concept is going to be expensive, and not many people are gonna walk into it that aren't well prepared financially. I've already talked to 3 different parties that are expressing interest, 2 of them on that 116 acres.
Yeah.
So they're out looking, they're out reading the
wait,
conservation.
I'm sorry, the 116 acres next to Bradbury,
Yes,
that's 400 feet of road frontage.
exactly. Well, there's 300,
No.
isn't it 300?
There is 300 feet of road frontage there. It is part of the subdivision. In order for them to, the road is still, it was, kind of abandoned. It was not abandoned, it was discontinued. We have that as well in there. But with that house, they need the 50 feet. They don't have it to do a back lot.
So that can't be subdivided? That cannot be subdivided?
That's my point. I don't think they can do anything with it.
Well, they can assemble additional land in addition to 160. So by assembling adjacent properties, there's a possibility it can be done. All the more reason for looking at this particular case of conservation subdivision, to see it conventionally and to see what it would look like. side by side.
I think
These things get fleshed out. There's a lot of due diligence that's done before someone will spend $1.5 million to buy a piece of land with very little frontage.
Yeah.
And there are people
They
looking at
can't
that.
build a road to create frontage?
No, so you've got to have 650 feet of road frontage on an existing road, thanks planning board, to build a conservation to build a subdivision.
Yeah.
That, and I know the folks on the other side of that, I can't remember who they are, but I don't think they're interested in selling stuff,
Yeah,
we'll see.
it may be at least aren't pursued.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the ordinance is getting attention. People are looking at it in other different parts of town.
Yeah.
Also. Mostly acreage is 100 acres. Because you need that type of acreage with lots of frontage to make this conservation subdivision.
Yeah. To your point about the graphic, that's, so, I want this to say what you just said. And if this isn't clear that it says that, I want to revise it so that it's clear that what we want, I think effectively is a full-size graphic map, just like you would submit a plan showing this is conventional, this is what would be allowed. 300 feet on the existing road, 300 feet, exactly how many lots.
I'd like to be in a position, let's say,
And I think I think that's what the ordinance, we drafted the ordinance to require that. And so I think we have a good basis to say,
I believe you do, but if Amanda, the developer, comes in and says, Tom, this is what I want to do, I'd like to be in a position to say, Well, my board would like to see a graphic of conventional and conservation. Spell out the densities, because that's an important component of it.
Yeah.
Spell out the linear footage of roads and where you're planning to, your points of entry and access, Brian.
Well, I think, I mean, the one issue with that, I agree with the conventional sketch plan, which we put in there, just to say, all right, here's how you justify how many lots you can have. But we wanted this to be more collaborative, so we don't necessarily want them coming in saying, here's the conservation version. Right, it's, here's how many lots I can put in, and maybe they roughly show where things are, but I mean, thought like the initial stuff was about the topography, working the land, kind of collaboratively coming up with, here's where the road should go, here's how long. 1,000 feet's here, but if we go to 15 feet, it opens up this space. So I'm not sure that we necessarily want
And
a
that, I think,
formal secondary map.
A point well taken, Brian. However, it's just conceptual. You're not holding the developer to that conceptualization. Much of it's fairly easy to identify from aerial photography and wetland maps as to the areas that you can't touch or can't go into. So it'll pretty much define where roadways will end up being. I've looked at one such map and I'm amazed at the amount of investment that an applicant will make before they even have bought the property.
Yeah.
Topographic survey, aerial reconnaissance, wetlands identification, species identification.
I think we asked for some of that, right? We want
Yeah,
to see some of like the key site elements.
this is, so we've got effectively 4 maps that we're asking applicants for in the conservation plan. We've got the concept plan, which is what you're describing, right? This is basically a naked plan just showing topography and a few other things, existing site features. That's our chance to collaborate with the applicant. At the same time they submit that, they have to submit this lot density. That's the one where I'm asking all of us to sort of spell out more clearly what that is. It's in the ordinance. I've tried to draft up what I sort of speak legalese, and so I think this probably doesn't translate well to people. It should be clear. We're asking for a graphic, a map that shows this. Then after that, they'd submit the preliminary plan, which is effectively a final plan, only they've got chances to make changes. That's the.
It does that.
Thank you, Jenny. And then we've got the final application. So those are the 4 plans that they're submitting. We had, if you guys remember, we talked a lot about whether we wanted effectively 2 different concept plans. We decided against that. I don't really remember the rationale behind it, but I think actually the rationale, Orion, you were saying was like, are we really gonna ask the applicants to expend that much money? If they're gonna bring a concept plan and we have the ability to work with them on that, let's not specifically require a second concept plan. We can ask them for that. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I do think it's good that they show us, they show us, this is how many lots you could do and show us a rough map of what they'd like to do with it. I don't think it's like they should come in with no idea what they want to do and be like, planning board, where do you think we should put the houses? That's not our job to do that. Like, they should talk to Tom and Tom could say, yeah, the planning board is likely to be concerned about where the road is going to be. Does it fit in the topography? Are you preserving key features that are valuable? And then they can come in when they put the map, they can say, see, these are the key features. We preserve this. This is where we think, we like, and then we can provide feedback to it. And it might be tweaked some, but Tom can kind of help them in that phase of letting them know what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And then there's one more layer just to give the board the heads up on, is that will be the mix of types of housing. And so I think it's important to understand what those mixes are in the beginning. The applicant, believe me, the applicant knows. And so I think in the future, you might be seeing a mixture of some of your more expensive homes, but on the same site, maybe even workforce housing.
Well, we talked in the process, which I don't recall if we actually really went down the rabbit hole of like, is there a density bonus for an affordable housing component in order to encourage more of that? And I don't know if we I don't think we really include that in this first version of it, and it's something we want to revisit, or if we thought some of that might already be in some of the state rules of LD 2003, and so we didn't need to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember us not wanting to make it so explicit
Yeah.
that we get voted down, so start with
yeah,
the basic. And the checklist does say math. I mean, it's a math,
Yeah,
it's graphic.
Yeah, I guess it just doesn't need to be like a formal survey map, it's a survey that meets all the criteria of the final map. It's just sort of a sketch plan where there's a topographical map where they've done some work to identify this stuff and say, you know, here's roughly, here's a row, here's the lots we can put in. Something to that effect, but I don't know, I mean, it sounds like people are already going way past that, so.
You know, some of these things too, can be extrapolated from existing maps. There's all the topographic conditions of the entire Earth are plots, and you can extrapolate. Unfortunately, it's at a 10-foot contour. And then after they've established wetlands, it gives them a good sense of where can we navigate roads and still fall within the confines of the ordinance. So doing the concept map is really not that complicated for the applicant. However, the absence of having the two of them side by side makes it more challenging for the board. Again, if you want the poster child, you've got to get a lot of information up front.
oh, yeah.
You know,
And you were mentioning that it's an expensive process, you know, and I want to assure the people who may be watching this now or in the future that the intent is not to create a timely and expensive process. We wanted to create a process that would, you know, allow housing in our community in a way that balances, you know, the needs for housing and our rural character and what's in the comprehensive plan. And the intent is not to be onerous for the sake of onerousness, that we want people to be able to build affordably and timely in our town, but we also want to be done in a way that fits with our comprehensive plan and with our community. So,
oh, Ryan, your point's well taken. When I mentioned that the entire process will be expensive.
yeah,
The expense comes at the state level.
yeah, it's expensive to build anywhere in the state.
Well, the Site Location Act in itself is a very complicated act. And as Adrian hinted, anyone who's been through the Site Location Act and been through the main DEP, that's where the burden of proof and real heavy duty expenses are.
Yeah.
I've done a number of them, so I know.
Yeah, like Marcia went through, which would agree that that's an expensive process and time consuming. And time is money, yeah.
So where do we stand on this checklist? Are we sending it back to Tom for a look? Is that what we're thinking?
If the board would like me to just do a slight refinement to that upfront process, making sure that when I sit down with an applicant, I can get you that comparison. You put it up on the board and see the big picture. That's what we're looking at. And it's likely that these might be 100+ acre sites. So you definitely want to see the big picture.
yeah.
So I would like to have a little bit more latitude there with the board's permission, and we can work up some language with Matt and the co-chairs to bring it back in July.
Sure.
Is there any other part of that?
Did you feel the
embellishment?
I mean, I think we'll learn as we go with the concept plan that Brian was talking about. I think the final plan, we did a lot of work on what that should include, and I think that the checklist reflects that. I want to make sure that, you know, we spent countless hours talking about density neutrality and wound up taking an approach that I think I really tried hard to persuade everybody was right, and it's only right if we implement it correctly. And I want to make sure that the checklist sort of forces people to do it the right way. I think that logically it makes a lot of sense. I think it avoids sort of changing density. But,
Start right, anyway.
yeah. So I'm happy to help out with that language more, get on the phone, we can talk more through it. Okay,
And the minor subdivision checklist, I didn't have any comments on that, but
I think it's pretty much the same, right? Did anyone else have any changes there? And then we had planning board procedures. Were there changes proposed?
I have a question about like, if Matt and Todd are talking, like Matt and Todd can talk to each other, that's not a meeting. If Matt and Todd are talking to you, is that still not a meeting?
That's not a meeting.
Okay.
Also,
It's the three people is a meeting. and you
after
can't do
tonight,
that.
you guys.
Oh, yeah,
can
you're
talk
not
to
on
me,
it. Yeah,
And that's fine.
you're a citizen. Yeah.
And it's fine for, the co-chairs to email Marcia and talk about timing and
Yeah.
things that are, every now and then you'll get a FOA request from an applicant who's has a lawyer.
Yeah.
You want to be mindful of that.
Yeah. Anything you write these days could be published in the New York Times. So remember that.
Were there changes to the procedures, Marcia, that you had in mind or?
I was trying to find it. It's been so long. I don't think I have the copy of the changes here. So the old one with the contact words, it's the one that's posted downstairs. And the one that's on the website. Hold on a second.
Pass that over to her.
Yes.
It says contact Northstar Planning.
Oh, it has now contact info, Tom Ursha,
Right.
planner at Pownell, planning board secretary. Yeah,
Oh, this one has the conservation subdivision.
so did I send you the wrong thing?
They sent me a good thing.
Oh, okay.
So I think that this is good. It's just not, let me see what's on the website. Yeah, so this needs to go on the website.
Okay,
So I'm making this for Becky and that'll be on my list posted.
Along those lines, our town administrator, as a result of town meeting, will be working, in the real near future to hopefully get a part-time webmaster. Someone that will be helping with those IT components. And it'll give the planning board an expanded presence. So once we find out who that person will be, maybe we'll have that person come to the planning board. So be thinking about some special needs that an IT specialist could be helpful in how we might improve our presence.
Definitely have improvement.
I'm noticing that, for example, some of these site plans, we had subdivision materials up on the website, but these site plans are, and I think they should be.
I think they should be, and this is the kind of thing we need a person who's dedicated. I mean, Becky just is so, and Pascal now too, they do the work of 15
No more
people.
room on the website. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Having someone who's dedicated to that will be so beneficial.
The board should think about what its priorities want to be on that new embellished website. Because our engine only is so strong. So, for example, it was tonight when Teradyne said, I'll give you the DEP application digitally, but I'm not sure most personal computers could open it, unless it was compressed.
Yeah.
So we'll need to be thoughtful of that. But be thinking where your priorities might lie. I think it's going to be very helpful to put up graphics and site plans, and that's not going to take a lot of muscle.
Hopefully the DEP has some of that stuff on their thing and then we can just post a link to it as opposed to us having to host it on our website.
They don't post it.
They don't, but well, let's talk to our legislators about getting them to post it.
Having enough, even though it's this big, flipping it back and forth, I think it's useful.
Yeah.
Guys, I feel bad for leaving you all.
No,
But it's been a
no.
pleasure. Like this group of board members has been, it's been fun to be on the board the whole time. It's been really special to be working with you guys and I will certainly keep in touch and see you guys all around town. I look forward to.
I saw you running down Elmwood Road, I think, the other
Give me a
day.
hump, man.
I didn't swerve at you, so that means I like you.
Thanks, all right.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really want you. I know you're right.
I'll hold you to that. Mercy.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Wait, before
What?
you adjourn.
Yep.
Oh, the communications,
Communications,
right. Quickly, communications, I have received, number one, an inquiry about the comments in the plan, in the annual report that Tom mentioned, inquiries about the conservation subdivision. And, I basically wrote back that to watch, that I didn't know, and to watch for any agenda items. And I sent you all a letter from Will Johnson and Rosita Moore. Rosita was here tonight regarding Bradbury. And next month, we'll be talking about the waiver for Estabrooks, the field adjustment, as they called it. And we'll be talking about next month, conservation subdivision checklist from you. You're going to be working on the site plan review, and we're going to have a public hearing and site plan review for Bradbury. And I don't know what else is on the agenda. Do you know, Tom, what I'd be coming?
the board and the new co-chairs may want, with your first assignment, you may want to think about how you want to handle communications at a public hearing. Will invested some time to put his thoughts down regarding Bradbury, and somehow they have to gel into that public hearing. So those have to, probably, the simple way is just to advance and to announce that we have a communication dating such and such from such and such person regarding Bradbury.
Do we post that on the website as part of,
It-
communications?
And also copies made available for the public that wants to read it.
Remember the
Because it's
Merrill
2
Road
pages
here?
long.
We had hundreds of, not hundreds, dozens.
Yeah, I don't-
It's a
of
different.
letters.
I don't know if we want to print out every comment. I think it's fine to, if people send us emails, we could make them publicly available and then the applicant can see those comments and the general public can see it, but we don't necessarily need to print them off here
Yeah,
at
in
a
this
meeting.
case, it was point specific and there were a
Yeah.
lot of details in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somehow you want to weave that into the public hearing so that they're aware that a resident has provided this information. And
I
it's-
actually-
It's more just access.
I think we have to read it. I actually would have loved to counter some of his points because we was talking about things that he doesn't understand the context of the state park system.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be really careful about saying that we're gonna advance any communication and post it
Yeah.
without the applicant being able to respond to it. Because there were errors, or there were things in there that might have made other people think or something that Chris can set right.
Matt might be able to help us with an effective disclaimer.
Yeah.
That. you
Well,
know,
I wouldn't even bother with a disclaimer. What you might do is just say, so everything that gets ideally, right? And to be clear, we are like under-resourced. What I was saying earlier, like Becky does the job of 15 people, so it's impossible to ask her to do more. But I do think a simple thing to do would be, well, in an ideal world, everything would be posted on the website, right? Everything comes out, gets posted on the website. At a public hearing, the chair can give the opportunity to the applicant to say, you just said, is there anything that you've read that you would like to address? And if there's something that has been submitted that is relevant to the board's deliberation, if that's you and you think it's relevant, give the applicant the opportunity to. The goal is transparency, so.
We may get a deluge at this next public hearing. And I think that's the only thing is I don't know if we can commit to posting all of those, or that it's our responsibility as the board to make sure
we at least look at them, and then if we see a point, or we see a point 5 times, to be able to say, oh, someone need,
Yeah.
if this doesn't come up, we do need to address. this
Yeah,
point.
I feel like they did address some of the points tonight in their presentation. And I was going to ask Paul a question, but then I'm like, they kind of answered it, so I don't need to say, we got a letter that asked this, because they already answered it.
I would also argue that, getting back to my original question about what our role is. Our role is not to tell them how to build their campground. Is it? It's not.
Our role is to, by our, the town's role, the planning board's role, is how to do it correct technically.
Right.
Okay? How to technically maneuver the chief's largest truck and have the proper radii. How to have a well that's gonna supply all that new bathhouse. And so those are the technicalities. This is part of site plan review.
Right.
Yeah. But it's not, what it is not, is the board trying to decide how many 30-footers or 20-footers.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with site planning.
So Will's letter to the board really is, it's kind of irrelevant in a way. He brought up some good points. I think most of them addressed, but it's kind of irrelevant to us because we can't really act.
A lot of personal opinion, but yet going back to Matt's point, transparency is everything. We have to be transparent with everything that comes forward. You don't, some of it's just gonna be my personal opinion.
But we
Don't
should
have to-
forward that letter potentially to the applicant to say that we've received this feedback and this gives you an opportunity to see what public comments we've received already. And if you want to address any of the public comments in your, presentation, then you can see what people are interested in.
As a staff person, I provided that to the state and to the applicant.
Yeah.
Because it's public information. It deals with their proposal, and they openly accepted it and felt it was important in their review to come up with the best possible plan they could. So that's, as staff people, we have to be very, very transparent.
And good on any citizen who is actually.
Yeah,
informed and
exactly.
cares enough to write a letter. And I think it does help with the accessibility. Not everyone gets it.
And, yeah.
So I think we need to balance that, but then also make sure that we're not advancing something that we want and staying in any of these letters. Or two, we could do in some projects and not get together. So I want to make sure whatever is sustainable.
Sorry, I've given a bunch of like parting shots.
Oh.
I have a couple observations about that. One, just relevant to the conservation subdivision piece. I think that the way we thought about that in the process is that it's intended to be sort of a back and forth. And there are subjective items like how the developments sit on the land that I think, unlike site plan review or minor subdivision review, it shouldn't be the basis for denying or granting an application, but I think people who are here are volunteering for a reason. So you get a chance to sort of have those conversations. And the other thing, and I'm sorry for being a little idealistic, but like, I think in an ideal world, there's a chance for like civics education here and to be able to say to people, like, I am so inspired when I'm at public meetings. It's so
Yeah.
cool. And for people to hear, like, oh, we're not actually able to just say what we like and we don't like. We have to do what the town told us to do at town meeting. That's pretty cool. And so I think it feels like it's mundane and, but I think it's a great opportunity. to Explain that.
And if people want to write 2-page letters about stuff, we will read them. We appreciate them. We want your input. And we will also have a alternate seat opening up here. So
Yeah.
those are perfect people to come join the fray up here.
The education piece is important. I mean, like with the Merrill subdivision, I mean, a lot of people are saying, you can't do this, you can't allow this. It's like, well, it's a private landowner.
You can't.
The ordinance is here. You've got the frontage, you can put the road in, you can divide it up as long as it meets the ordinance. And I'd say it's 80%. We're just kind of saying, don't allow this to happen. You can't do that. You can't carve up this piece of woodland, but you can. conserve it, you know?
And we got, there were pages and pages that were sent to us, and we all read them. But you're right. they
That was the
were like
common
cut
theme.
and paste
Yeah.
arguments.
Yeah, because there's the whole neighborhood association was formed around that, and it was kind of a little copy and paste to an extent, like, here's the talking points, and they just weren't relevant to the fact that
Yeah,
the ordinance allows you to do this.
and I think that's the same with Bradbury, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
The way we do it. So, did I miss anything, Tom? This is it.
What was the conservation subdivision inquiry? I wasn't unclear. You got a
Oh,
message?
I got, this person's, his name, we already sent out, he read in the annual report that Tom wrote about the
Yeah.
planner said, like, he's already had inquiries
Oh,
about
okay.
conservation subdivision for several large parcels of land.
So there's an inquiry about what the inquiries were? Yeah, okay, yeah, like, talk to Tom, maybe.
Congratulations on the last meeting, sir.
Retirement.
I don't know, you're that.
When we get over there, keep flat yes. I think.
I'm gonna run some start. Thanks, Matt.
Somebody gotta say.
Good job.
Good job.